Hey, and welcome back to another video. This is the 6th episode of the story in which being born as the oldest of triplets, but being written off as the least prodigal of the three, Naruto will show them that there is more than meets the eye. With the help from a friend he will shake the world on end, prophecies be damned. He will be who he wants to be. He will show the world the power of a dragon. Please support by liking and subscribing. Let's start the show. Day after the celebration, Minato was sat in the office alone. This had been his escape from Kushina. There had been a reckoning he had to pay for his stunt the other day. Making Menma the clan heir was a safe move, in his opinion. Menma had done what Naruto had not, and the worst part about it was Naruto didn't seem to care. Yes, he took away Naruto's birthrights, but he didn't seem to care, and if he didn't care, neither did Minato. Maybe it would light a fire under him. However, Minato had his doubts. I was coming, and he needed a strong heir, in both mind and body, to stand before the Raikage. I would come to challenge all his children, but not all of them were ready, in his opinion. The village's future depended on them, so it didn't matter. They needed to be prepared. Minato had looked over the upcoming graduating classes' files again. He was still iffy on how he wanted to divide the teams up. He knew he wanted the basics, an assault team, a tracking, a support team, and a lead team. So far, he was comfortable with 2 of those teams. Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame were the perfect candidates for the tracking team, with Kurenai Yuhi as the leader. The support team with Asuma Sarutobi was perfect, with the next generation of the Ino Shikacho was a solid start. However, he was still contemplating the assault team, but he had an inkling of what he wanted for the lead team. Maybe it was his ego, but he wanted his children on that time. By tradition, he was to put the top male student, the top female student, and the dead last student on the same team. Currently, those 3 positions are held by his children. Another issue was that Kushina had all but threatened him to make her the sensei to their children. The problem was, in his opinion, Naruto. He didn't want his eldest's lack of work ethic to rub off on the other 2. Then came the assault team. He wanted Kakashi to lead this team, and he wanted Sasuke Uchiha to be on it. The other spots could be easy to fill in. One thing that was nagging the Hokage was the fight between his 2 sons. The brutality and effectiveness he saw Naruto fight with was unexpected. He dug through the pile until he came across Naruto's file. Opening it and seeing all the red marks made Minato feel shame. Unfocused, lacking in motivation, and tardy were some terms used to describe his oldest during his time at the academy. Irika had detailed Naruto sleeping and not showing up for yes, maybe he was more focused on Menma and Narumi, but that didn't excuse Naruto for his lack of responsibility. Sure, he didn't have any natural talent for sealing, jutsus, or his and Kushina's fighting styles, but he didn't even try. From the reports from his guarding Umbu, all Naruto did all day was draw and bum around Konoha. Still, the way he fought nagged him. For a boy who rarely trained with them and at the academy, he won against the top student and did it soundly. Menma didn't use any justice, but Menma should have been the clear winner even in a straight taijutsu fight. Minato called out to the room, Usagi. Leaping from the shadows and kneeling in front of the Hokage. The rabbit mask-wearing Umbu kept their head low and asked in a young masculine voice, "What is it you wish, Hokage-sama?" Long brown hair was the only defining feature. "What did my son do yesterday?" Minato inquired. Minato initially assigned Nico to the job of looking after the children. However, when it became apparent Naruto was going off on his own, he appointed another Umbu to follow him separately. Usagi was the first to volunteer, and not surprising, considering he was a young Umbu looking to earn his stripes. Usagi lowered his head more and began his report. He skipped the academy again and took the streets to draw and lounge about before stopping at that ramen stand to eat. Minato's jaw clenched at the news. His son was continuing his antics. The boy was constantly at their favorite ramen spot. Tiredly sighing, Minato told the Umbu, "You're dismissed. Keep up the good work." The Umbu nodded before he disappeared in a blur. He was off to keep a watch over Naruto. Minato went limp in his chair. What was he going to do with that boy? Knocking on his door made Minato's contemplating disappear. He groaned in annoyance before calling out, "Enter." His day couldn't get any worse. Kakashi popped his head in and was, as usual, smiling. "Mornin', sensei." Kakashi greeted cheerily. "Kakashi," Minato greeted back neutrally. He wanted a break. Kakashi pulled out a scroll from his back pocket and put it on Minato's desk. "You have a scroll, sensei." Minato groaned again before taking the scroll and unraveling it. At first, he lazily scanned it before he tensed and sat straighter. He kept reading, his eyes moving frantically while he pulled more of the scroll out. He couldn't believe it. Kakashi saw his sensei's distress and asked, "Who's it from, Minato-sensei?" He could not see any distinguishing marks on the scroll when he was given it. Minato looked at his student, and for the first time since the Kyuubi attack, he saw Minato afraid. Later that night Minato made it home late that night. Kushina had left the porch light on for him. Opening the door and quickly turned the porch light off. The kitchen light was on, and Minato went to inspect why. For him, on the dining room table, in his spot, was dinner. It was a simple miso soup and rice. Minato pulled out his chair and sat. He wasn't hungry. He hadn't been hungry all day. He didn't know how long he sat in there, but the sound of steps on the stairs caught his attention. In the doorway of the kitchen was Kushina in a modest nightgown. She gave a cute yawn and asked, "Why didn't you come up?" She still had her eyes closed, and a few hairs were sticking up on end. When she didn't hear her husband respond, she opened her eyes and saw the look on his face. Minato was stressed as he stared endlessly at the table, unacknowledging his wife. Kushina shuffled over to the table, sat in her chair, and put her hand on his arm. "What's wrong?" she asked warmly as she rubbed his arm. Minato sighed through his nose and instinctively grasped her hand with his. He rubs the back of her hand with his thumb. He thought for a moment, trying to decide how to approach Kushina about the news he had received today. Feeling defeated, he discarded subtlety and told her what was happening. Kushina took it all as she gained a worrying look. After all the explaining was done, Kushina was shaky as well. "What are we going to do?" she wondered. Minato shook his head and responded, "I don't know." Minato was at a loss for the first time in a long time. He sat at the table for a while until he and his wife went to bed. He would have to tackle this soon. Root headquarters Danzo sat in his nearly darkened room, the only light source coming from a barely lit lantern on his desk. Behind Danzo's desk was the kanji 4 "na" on the wall behind him. He looked over a scroll that had been intercepted from none other than the Rouge San Nin, Orochimaru. Feeling another usual presence, he called out, "Report." Out of the shadows Usagi came out and landed in a bow. Usagi got to the point of speaking his report emotionlessly, another false report given. As requested, Danza-sama. Usagi still wore his mask and the usual Umbu uniform. Usagi had been on the assignment for nearly 3 years. He had Usagi follow Naruto but not outside the village. The reason, it didn't matter. Danzo knew the boy was obsessed with the outside world. He was not meeting with a spy or thinking about abandoning the village. Usagi would place the guards under a simple genjutsu to avoid seeing Naruto. Danzo nodded his head in acceptance. The Hokage doesn't suspect a thing. He wanted clarification. He needed his plan to go unnoticed. All the pieces were beginning to fall into place, and soon he would get his wish. "No, my lord," Usagi answered while shaking his head. Danzo contemplated as he gave a deep hum. It was just as planned, but maybe he needed another ally. He looked down at the scroll that was now in his possession. Perhaps he could kill two birds with one stone. Good, just make sure he doesn't know of the boy's activities, Danzo commanded as he put the scroll into one of his sleeves. He would meet with Orochimaru's spy and set up a meeting. Go back to your duties, dismissed, Danzo commanded before turning his chair to face the symbol. He didn't bother to wait for an acknowledgement that his orders were received. Danzo wasn't an emotional man. Emotions were unnecessary in the shinobi world. If anything, emotions made people weak and illogical. He would abduct the boy during one of his escapades when the time came. He could use him as leverage against the Hokage and his red-haired whore. They would bend to his will because their emotions would demand it, and he would use it to his heart's content. Maybe even making the Tina root umbu would be the icing on the cake for him. This put a smile on his face. 3 days later Naruto walked the street of Konoha towards his father's office. His mother had wanted to have a picture of the whole family with their headbands on. He had volunteered to go get his father in the headbands so he could get out of the house. He had been cooped up in the house due to his mother preparing them for the upcoming missions. She revealed that not all missions were battles to the death, saving princesses, or fighting monsters. A mission could be simple, mundane things like painting a fence or walking dogs. Those were the missions Genin usually did. Naruto made it to the tower and robotically walked up the stairs. He walked past the secretary, who was in the process of applying some new nail polish. The door to his father's office was made of oak and on the door in gold paint was Hokage's office. He walked through the door to his father's office and was met with his father practically buried behind mountains of paperwork. His father looked on the verge of tears as he quickly signed away paper after paper. "Hey, Tuchan. Is this a bad time?" Naruto asked while looking on at the spectacle. Minato looked up with bloodshot eyes. "No, it isn't a bad time," Minato's voice came out hallowed. Naruto eyed the stacks of paper and asked, "Didn't you give most of the paperwork to the civilian council?" His father had boasted how he eliminated most of the paperwork. This didn't look like most of it. Minato whined out, "This is just from the clans." Naruto's sweat dropped as he saw his father be reduced to a shell of a man. This job didn't look like it was worth it. Then as if he was perfectly restored by Tsunade, Minato asked, "What did you need?" He looked happy to have an excuse not to work anymore. Naruto got right to the point, Kachin wanted. "Time to die, Blondie," a young voice shouted as someone burst through the door. A young boy of no more than Akane's age, maybe 8 or 7. The boy was dressed in a yellow shirt with a red leaf symbol on its front, gray shorts that were patched on the knees with darker cloth, blue shinobi sandals, and an overly long blue scarf that touched the floor. In his hand, held high, was poorly whittled shuriken made of wood. The boy only made it 4 steps before he tripped over the scarf. The wooden shuriken clattered to the ground before sliding across the floor and disappearing under Minato's desk. Minato tiredly sighed before he facepalmed. This wasn't the first encounter with the young boy. "This is the 3rd time this week, Konohamaruken." Minato used his father voice to reprimand a young boy with spiky brown hair. Konohamaru was rubbing his sore and slightly red face. Konohamaru's blurry vision came into focus before he saw the Hokage, and a black-haired version of the Hokage looked down at him. Happiness graced Konohamaru's face as he lifted his upper body from the floor and asked, "How'd I do?" It was a game he had been doing for years. He was trying to kill Minato and take his place as Hokage. Minato tiredly drawled out, "Not even close." The boy's face slammed into the floor at the Hokage's cold response. "He tried his best, damn it." Naruto pointed towards Konohamaru while looking at his father and asked, "Does he do that all the time, and does he know that could get him killed?" Naruto noticed that none of the hidden umbu jumped to defend the Hokage. Then again, this kid was like a mosquito to Minato's lion. The day Minato got hurt, let alone killed by the kid, was the day he deserved to give up the Hokage hat. Minato rubbed his eyes with his thumb and pointer finger. He doesn't care, Minato replied. The brat had tried everything to try and kill him. He tried being sneaky, but it never worked. Konohamaru looked at Naruto with a stink eye, and Naruto raised an eyebrow at the kid. What's that for? Naruto wondered. Naruto didn't have to wait long as Konohamaru pointed at him accusingly while shouting, "You tripped me." Naruto and Minato both sweat dropped. Naruto was nowhere near the clumsy runt. Naruto's forehead grew a tick mark before he started shouting, "You tripped over yourself, Gaki." He wasn't going to take those accusations from a snot-nosed brat. Konohamaru barked back, "Nuhu, I saw you." Konohamaru knew he was going to kill the Hokage today. He just knew it, and it was ruined by the unknown wannabe in his office. Naruto tried to restrain his anger and, through clenched teeth, said, "I'd stop before I kick your teeth in." He felt an uncontrollable need to toss the kid through the office windows. Konohamaru smirked victoriously and thought, "This guy doesn't know who I am." He stood up from the ground, crossed his arms, and smirked arrogantly. "Do it. I dare. You." Konohamaru. He closed his eyes in victory. Immediately after something smashed the top of his head, he face-planted to the ground. His world spun on its axis. Naruto held the wrist of his right hand while he let out a satisfying sigh. "That felt great," Naruto stated. He only hit the boy with enough force to leave a bump on his head. The kid needed to know his place. Minato rolled his eyes. His oldest took after their mother when it came to antics and behavior. "Was that necessary, Naruto?" he pressed. By all means, Minato had wanted to do that for the longest time, but he could never raise his hand to the child. Suddenly the door to the office shot open, and next came a man that was another headache for Minato. "Konohamaru-sama." Ebisu called out. Ebisu is a tall, lanky man with dark hair and brown eyes. He was a Tokubetsu Jonin, which meant he received the rank of Jonin because he was good at a specific skill and not a well-rounded Jonin. He wore the standard Konoha shinobi outfit without the flat jacket. He also wears his hitayat like a bandana and black lensed sunglasses over his eyes. Minato groans a lot today as he ground out, "Ebisu." The man had one job and was only given the rank of Tokubetsu Jonin due to promising he could do the job unimpeded. However, that turned out to be a lie. This is the third time this week this happened. Minato's frustration leaked into his words. Ebisu quickly bowed his upper body and placed his hands together in a praying manner. "Forgive Hokage-sama. I will make sure he won't do it again," Ebisu pledged. Minato had heard that before and again was met with the same result. Then Ebisu looked towards his ward and saw the boy face down with a lump forming on his head. "Konohamaru-sama." Ebisu cried out before running over to the boy. After a quick check over, Ebisu called out, "Who did this?" Naruto lazily raised his hand. Ebisu started immediately shouting, "How dare you do this to the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage?" Ebisu had made it a point to let others know who his young ward was. Naruto gave the older man a deadpan look before saying, "He tried to fight me." Naruto knew the kid was no match, but sometimes you needed to put the yapping dog in its place. Ebisu used his right middle finger to push the brim of his glasses up his nose. He was displeased by the boy's disrespect. "You should mind your manners, Gaki. He's Sarutobi Konohamaru." Ebisu snarled, trying to be intimidating. Konohamaru picked himself off the floor while rubbing the bump forming on his head. As he heard Ebisu tear into Naruto, he shot a victorious smirk at the black-haired teen's back. "Now you're gonna get it," he cheered in his head. He didn't want to say it out loud in case the guy flattened him again. Minato didn't like the man's tone and was about to tell the man he was going to be bumped down to Genin before Naruto spoke up. "Kazan told me to remind you about the picture and to not forget the headbands when you get home." "Regular time," Naruto said without giving Ebisu the time of day. "What?" Konohamaru screamed internally. Whenever anyone found out he was the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage, they immediately gave him the utmost respect. Naruto didn't care who his grandfather was. Minato started to profusely sweat. He had completely forgotten about the picture. He shakily laughed while saying, "Of course. I didn't forget." He was lying through his teeth, and Naruto knew it. The skeptical look on Naruto's face didn't go away, and he sighed, disappointed in his father. For a man who married one of the fiercest women on the planet, he had a death wish by forgetting when she said something. Naruto gave a lazy wave as he turned and spoke, "See you at home." He walked past a fuming Ebisu, imitating a volcano about to erupt. Naruto opened the door, walked out, and gently shut it behind him. Ebisu went up to his Hokage and started to shout, "Hokage-sama, your son needs to be punished." Ebisu pointed at the office door where Naruto slipped out. The man missing Konohamaru slipped out of the room to follow Naruto, but Minato noticed. Minato raised an eyebrow at the man's demand. How can a subordinate think to make a demand from his superior? Minato would have threatened the man if it wasn't so damn funny. "No, I won't, and you better start taking your job seriously, Ebisu-san," Minato reprimanded with a frown. Ebisu was astonished by the Hokage's remark. "I do take my job seriously, Hokage-sama," he defended. He was taking care of a Hokage's grandson. There was no honor or responsibility bigger than that, say training the current Hokage's children. Minato's frown deepened before plainly remarking, "Then where is Konohamaru-kun?" He wanted to see the man squirm in his spot. Ebisu turned and confidently responded, "He's right over." As he went to show where he last saw Konohamaru on the ground, he saw it was no longer occupied. "Where did he go?" Ebisu exclaimed. He was in deep trouble, again. Minato had an epiphany, he could use Ebisu to test something for him. He followed Naruto, Minato told him, and set his plan into action. Immediately Ebisu launched himself out of the office and went on to his search. Being alone in his office, Minato went over to photos of the previous Hokages. He swore he wouldn't do this, but his curiosity was starting to eat him up on the inside. He placed his palm on the picture of Hiruzen and pushed some chakra into it. The picture slid up and revealed a small safe behind the photo. Minato did the same action on the safe before it opened, revealing what was inside. A crystal ball. He took it out before shutting the safe, and the picture went back into its original place. This wasn't an ordinary crystal ball, it was a medium for the Tomegain no Jutsu. This technique allows the user to look at someone if they know their chakra signature. Minato put his right hand in a single tiger seal before a bird's eye view of Naruto appeared. Minato sat back and watched the events unfold. Streets of Konoha. Naruto was getting annoyed. As he walked, the little runt of a Sarutobi was following him and trying to be stealthy. The kid attempted hiding behind garbage cans but stepped on some broken glass. He then walked on a cat's tail, making it hiss and swipe at the boy. The last one was the most pathetic. He tried to blend into the fence, but his overly long scarf was still visible on the ground. A blind man with a bell wrapped around his neck was quieter. Naruto did a mental check of where he was. He had memorized the map he made of Konoha, both above and below the village, and was coming across a spot that could help get rid of his tail. Naruto turned a corner and quickly enacted his plan. Konohamaru watched his target go around the corner into an alley. He has been doing as Ebisu had taught him, and he had gone unnoticed so far. He quietly went to the corner of the mouth of the alley and peeked in. He saw it was a dead end, and no Naruto was to be seen to his shock. All that was present in the alleyway were trash cans, boxes, and a manhole. Konohamaru stepped into the alley and carefully looked around for any trace of him. He walked over the manhole and looked behind some of the trash cans. He looked up to the tops of the buildings but still saw no sign of him. He was then jerked upwards by his scarf. He let out a yell in fear, but the familiar voice calmed him down. "All right, Saragaki, what's the big idea following me?" He was turned around to be face to face with an annoyed Naruto. Konohamaru was dumbstruck. He had no idea how Naruto got behind him. That didn't matter. He had something important to ask him. I want you to train me. The boy pointed at Naruto while saying the declaration. Naruto hid the manhole when Konohamaru walked into the alleyway. As he watched the boy look for him, he thought of multiple reasons the boy would come after him. If he's here to make me apologize, he's got another thing coming. Naruto rationalized. He got out stealthy and snuck up on the boy before grabbing his scarf. Out of the things he expected, asking Naruto to train him was something that never crossed his mind. Why should I? Naruto asked the runt. The boy became excited and said, because your punch was strong, and you weren't afraid of Ebisu. He then pointed at Naruto, and stars twinkled in his eyes. That means you're strong. Naruto's lips went lopsided as he was unconvinced. Konohamaru saw Naruto wasn't completely sold on the idea and pleaded one last time, come on, please. You're the Hokage's son. Don't you want to be Hokage? Naruto stared impassively at the boy for several seconds. Follow me and keep up, he said before walking out into the streets. Konohamaru didn't need to be told twice as he followed right behind him. Training ground. Naruto led the boy to a training ground that wasn't far from the alley. Luckily it was occupied by other training shinobi. The training ground was a simple patch of soft dirt about 40 yards in length. What do we do first? Practice a strong ninjutsu. Learn to throw shuriken and kunai. Learning to use the shadows for the silent kill. Konohamaru listed off the things he thought he would learn, speaking ominously for the last one to sound scary. Naruto ignored the kid's words and walked over to one of the many surrounding oak trees. The tree was old and strong, the base of the trunk was so thick it would take his brother, his sister, and him holding hands to completely circle around it. Naruto put his hand on it, and without looking at the kid, he said, I'm going to show you how to throw a punch. The neutral expression he shot Konohamaru made the boy grit his teeth. Konohamaru's mouth dropped before he grit his teeth. I know how to throw a punch. Konohamaru was insulted by the accusation. He got into a sloppy stance before he shot out an even sloppier jab that was more akin to a floppy wet noodle. Naruto smirked at the action before presenting the tree to the kid. Then come here and show me. Konohamaru came up the tree and looked up at the tree. Not understanding what his new mentor wanted. He asked, what do you want me to do with the tree? Punch it as hard as you and peel the bark from the tree, Naruto said. Konohamaru grew an unconfident smile. Suddenly his punch didn't seem all that strong. Naruto motioned for him to begin before sitting off in a meditative state. Konohamaru swallowed an imaginary lump in his throat, got into a stance, and threw a punch with his right hand. Konohamaru's fist connected with the tree, and his knuckles immediately protested. Instead of peeling the bark, he peeled the skin away from his knuckles. Konohamaru hissed and grabbed the wrist of his now throbbing hand. You better give up on being Hokage if that tiny bit of pain stops you, Naruto calls out from his spot. Konohamaru grits teeth and ignores the advice. He winds up again and strikes the tree with the same hand. He did it 2 more times, biting back the pain. He fired off a third punch, and this time the pain slithers up his body and makes him fall to his knees. He gripped his right wrist and shouted in anguish. Done already? Naruto asked rhetorically. Konohamaru looked up at his impromptu mentor and demanded, you think this is easy? You try it. Naruto looked at him impassively before walking over to a tree next to Konohamaru's. Naruto took a ready stance before throwing a punch almost too fast for Konohamaru to see. Bark was ripped from the tree, revealing phloem. Konohamaru gasped in awe at what he saw. He quickly looked at Naruto's hand but saw no blood or torn skin. His hand was scratched, but it held firm. Tell me, Sarigaki, what did that idiot tell you about Hokages? Naruto questioned the boy. He glanced at him with a challenging expression. Still, Konohamaru was puzzled on the ground but gave an unsure answer. They were born that way. The expression he was given was uneasy. Naruto grew disappointed and shook his head negatively. Wrong, those men up there. Naruto started as he pointed at the faces on Hokage Mountain, and Konohamaru followed the finger. Started out just like us. They trained themselves every day into the dirt. They experienced pain and doubt but perceived. Naruto turned to Konohamaru so he could instill his words into the boy's mind. They earned that title through hard work, and they went through things you couldn't possibly imagine. If you want to be like your Ajisen, you have to work for it because it won't be handed to you. Naruto finished and let his words sink into the boy. Konohamaru looked down in the dirt. He knew about the wars his grandfather fought in and led. He ended up dying a hero because of his dedication to the job. He was stupid to think he could be Hokage now. How can I be like Ajisen? Konohamaru practically begged Naruto for an answer. Tears threatened to spill out the sides of his eyes. Why couldn't his grandfather be here to teach him? Don't try to like him, Naruto advised, and Konohamaru's head shot up. He had tears in the corners of his eyes. Smiling warmly, he added, make it your own way. Let people know it was Sarutobi Konohamaru that became Hokage. Not the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. Tears came down Konohamaru's chin. Never in his wildest dreams did he think someone would believe in him for just being him. His hands fell into the dirt and gripped the loose dirt in his fingers. He looked at Naruto through tear-filled eyes and rejoiced, thanks. Aniki. Naruto smiled and nodded. There you are, the voice of Ebisu called out before he jumped down from the trees. He landed in a crouch and stood as he pushed the glasses up his nose. He walked over to the two and arrogantly said, thank you for watching my ward, but I will be taking him back. He noticed the blood and scrapes on his ward. Ebisu demanded answers, what did you do? He took an aggressive step towards Naruto, and the teen narrowed his eyes. Konohamaru stood up and hid behind Naruto's legs. Leave me alone, the boy called out. He was with someone who believed in him. He didn't want to go back. You heard him. Get lost, Naruto snapped at the man. Ebisu was tired of the two's antics and frowned deeply. The boy is in my care, and if I have to put you in your place to get to him, so be it, Ebisu growled out and started to briskly walk towards the two. He would show the Konohamaru he was worthy of training him and put the disrespectful teen in his place. Konohamaru was nervous for Naruto. While he saw Naruto knew how to throw a punch, he was going up against a Tokubetsu Jonin, and Naruto was a recent academy graduate. Have faith, Gaki, Naruto told him before leaving Konohamaru to meet Ebisu in the middle of the training ground. The two stared each other in the eye. Ebisu took notice how Naruto was only about 2 inches shorter than him. However, that wouldn't matter in the fight, he would end this in a single move. Last chance. Walk away, Naruto issued a warning. Ebisu smirked at the boy's words. You're confident, but that won't save you, Ebisu lectured. Then as quick as lightning, he launched a downward punch at Naruto's head. This was an easy victory for him. The teen disappears from sight and feels immense pain in his stomach. Ebisu launched back with spittle flying from his gaping mouth. Ebisu landed in a heap on the opposite end of the training ground. Naruto was in a deep low stance with his arm and fist extended. Ebisu had been so full of openings in his big wind-up. Ebisu's overconfidence was his downfall. Naruto did a simple straight punch, and the results spoke for themselves. Naruto stood tall and kept his eyes on Ebisu for several seconds. With no signs of movement, he turned his back and walked back to the young boy. Konohamaru was starstruck after seeing what Naruto did. Well, he didn't see it, but he saw what happened after. It was amazing. Aniki, that was awesome. Konohamaru cheered as he ran to meet his mentor halfway. A single corner of Naruto's lips curled up, and he said, it wasn't a big Deal. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, unused to that kind of praise. Konohamaru looked at knocked-out Ebisu before looking to Naruto. So, what's next? Konohamaru asked the teen. It was still early in the afternoon, so there was plenty of time to learn something. Naruto then shockingly told him, nothing. Konohamaru was taken back by the team's bluntness. Naruto rubbed his neck. He hated to break it to the kid, but he needed to tell him the truth. Honestly, Konohamaru-san. I'm the wrong person to train you, Naruto revealed. Why? Konohamaru cried out. The teen was the first person to inspire and have faith in him. So why did the teen want to leave him? Naruto revealed why, and the reason shocked the young boy. Because I don't care about being Hokage. It's just a miserable life, Naruto explained. He thought of the job as a hindrance. It was not something he ever wanted to do with his life. It was a shackle that kept a person imprisoned to a village. If you're going to be Hokage, then find a teacher that can help you be one, Naruto offered. The advice rang through the boy's ears, but there was no change in his shocked expression. It was out of his hands now. He had to get home for a photo. Konohamaru watched the teens disappearing back as he walked out of the training ground. This didn't make sense. How can he say that about being Hokage, he declared. He would show Naruto what he would be like as Hokage. He wanted to tell Naruto that, but it came out, I hate you. He panted after yelling out those words. If Naruto heard, he didn't make any indication and just kept walking. Konohamaru heard groaning coming from Ebisu, and while the man was a bit of a dick, he did have good intentions. He went over to make sure his assigned teacher was okay. Hokage's office Minato had seen and heard everything. He was experiencing a whirlwind of emotions. Pride for his son for standing up to Ebisu. Bewilderment that his son knocked Ebisu out with a simple counter and showed expert combat prowess. Shame that his son thought so little of the Hokages. Fear for his son as he seemed to be going down a path that was unbefitting of a shinobi of Konoha. He looked through the paperwork of the teams and made a decision that he thought was the best course of action. It seemed he would be calling in that favor from Kakashi. Uzumaki Namikaze's household. After leaving Konohamaru with his words of wisdom, Naruto scurried back to the house to not face his mother's wrath. As he opened the door, he called out, Kacha. I'm back. He haphazardly took his shoes off before stepping into the house. His mother greeted Naruto in her old shinobi outfit, coming out of the living room. She wore a blue high-tie with her hair tied up in a high ponytail, and strands framed her face. She wore the standard Konoha flak jacket over a black short-sleeved shirt and black form-fitting pants that reached her calves. She looked like she was ready to take on the world. Naruken. Go. Change. Your Otosan will be home any minute. She disappeared back around into the living room. Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He was excited about this part. He had spent hours figuring out what he wanted to wear as a shinobi. He rapidly ran up the stairs, his bare feet smacking all the way up. He made it to his room, went to his closet, and changed. After changing, Naruto admired himself in the mirror on his dresser. Naruto wore his vest from Cringeon with a chainmail shirt underneath, black combat pants decorated his legs, and a simple pair of black open-toed sandals on his feet. I look badass, the boy thought before going downstairs. As usual, he was the last to arrive. He walked down the stairs and saw what his siblings had chosen to wear. Their mother had taken them each out separately to make it a surprise for everyone else. Narumi was dressed in her odd choice of clothing that made Naruto shiver. She wore an orange and blue jacket with a white collar, a white swirl with a tassel on the left side, and a red Uzumaki crest on the back. He also wore orange pants with a shuriken holster on his right knee and blue sandals. She mimicked her mother by putting her hair up in a ponytail that flowed down to her neck. Narutonii. Come on, we're waiting, the female triplet whined as she spied her oldest sibling lingering on the stairs. Menma came to his brother's defense and said, "Naramani, Tusan isn't even home. He's the one that's late." Menma wore a black tracksuit with 3 white stripes on the sleeves, mesh underarmor, a pair of black shinobi pants, and shinobi sandals with his feet wrapped up in tape up to his ankles. There was a small thud with a flash of yellow, and out of the kitchen came Minato. "Sorry, I'm late," the Hokage said sheepishly. He panicked when he saw the time and left his office in shambles when he left. He knew his wife kept her sword close by for occasions like this. Kushina sighed tiredly and chastised her husband. "I swear Minato-kun, if your head wasn't attached to your shoulders, you would forget where you left it." She leaned her forehead on her fingers and shook her head. Her demeanor quickly changed as she clapped her hands and declared, "Everyone in the living room for the photo." All other family members did as instructed to not set the woman off anymore. Kushina had done some arranging of bodies, and after a few minutes, she took a step back with her pointer finger and thumb wrapped around a chin. She let out a loud hum before cheering, "Perfect." She then went over to the camera and placed it on a tripod. She put on a quick timer before rushing over to join the photo. As the timer finished, the camera flashed. "It's done." Kushina cheered as she ran over to the camera. As she did that, the rest of the family relaxed in relief. "When this comes in, it's going right on the wall with your team pictures." Kushina cheered while practically ready to leave the house to get it developed. Minato laughed at his wife's positive energy. "I'm glad you're happy, Kushina-chan," Minato said with a forced chuckle. His wife was one of a kind. Akane came running into the living room. "Is it done yet, cousin?" the 80-year-old asked as she jumped around her mother. Kushina's lips thinned into a smile at her youngest daughter's antics. "Yes, but why couldn't I be in it?" the youngest Uzumaki Namikaze asked while staring sadly at the ground. Minato answered that question, "When you become a kunoichi, we'll take a picture to celebrate." He pats Akane's head, and the little girl smiles brightly. No one caught Naruto's narrowed gaze at his father. They already planned to enroll her in the following class. It was despicable to Naruto. Never giving the girl a chance outside of being a shinobi. He left to go to his room. The academy the next day today was the supposed great day of the class. Naruto and Menma had been practically dragged here by Narumi, who was up at the crack of dawn. They barely had time to get into their new outfits. Their sister was so excited to be assigned a team and hoped all 3 of them would be together. Menma had hoped the same but much less enthusiastic. Naruto, on the other hand, knew better than that. Having all the Hokage's children, one team could be seen as favoritism. They would more than likely be separated. The 3 of them currently walked to the academy, with Narumi in the lead practically skipping. Menma and Naruto walked side by side as they lazily lagged behind them. "I don't know how she does it," Menma commented. Naruto snorted and agreed with his brother, "Yeah. Ball of energy, isn't she?" He didn't know where his sister got it all. She never stopped moving or smiling. Wonder if Kacchan was like that as a kid? Menma wondered. Their mother was always so bubbly, nah. Naruto countered while waving off his brother. "That's definitely from Tu-chan," Naruto suggested. The 2 then imagined their serious and calm father being a bubbly go-getter. Naruto burst out laughing, and Menma joined. "Hey! What's so funny?" Narumi called out as she stood farther along the street. She had her hands on her hips, and she frowned deeply. Menma called back, "Nothing, nothing." Menma shot Naruto a snide look, making Narumi puff out her cheeks in a pout. She took off immediately after, and the boys followed their sister. The 16-year-old triplets made it to the academy and quickly made it to the classroom. "We made it first," Narumi proclaimed ecstatically after sliding the door open. She quickly ran over to her designated seat. She pulled her seat out and gingerly sat. She hummed while rocking in the chair. The two brothers looked at one another and walked in after her. Naruto closed the door to the classroom. Menma met his sister at her desk and took the chance to ask her, "Why did you want to get here so early?" Menma slid into the seat at the table across the way from her. Naruto to a seat on desk surface, one foot crossed. And the other rested on the floor. Narumi smiled before sitting back in her chair as she hugged herself. "We spent so many years here together," she started. She smiled fondly at all the memories she had with friends and brothers. "I just wanted to make the last time last a little longer," she spoke from her heart. She knew this was the final day of their childhood, and they would go on to live the life of a shinobi or kunoichi. Naruto smirked at his sister and said proudly, "Thanks for bringing us with you." Naruto didn't have those kinds of memories of the academy. He never had the drive to be a shinobi. He did this to complete his deal with his father and after. Well, after the deal was done, he was free to do as he pleased. However, he could put aside his feelings to enjoy this time with his siblings. "Geez, talk about sappy," Menma replied with a teasing smirk. Narumi suddenly gained vicious fawn-like teeth as she growled and lunged at the middle brother. Naruto held her back, and the two laughed as their sister tried to reach for Menma's throat with vigor. Eventually, the struggling stopped, and the three laughed. Naruto let go of his sister, and she retook her seat. "I can't wait for us to be on the same team together," Narumi hoped as she continued to smile brightly. Naruto rubbed the back of his head nervously. He didn't want to dash his sister's hopes, but he thought it would be better if he broke the news than Irika. "I don't think that's going to happen, Naramani," he vocalized his thoughts. He got the expected reaction from his sister. Narumi looked at her oldest brother, almost heartbroken. She shook her head adamantly before stammering out, "No. We will be on the same team." She was not going to let the doubt overtake the joy of this day. Menma had thought what his brother had told them and came to one conclusion. "Naruto-ni is right," he began. He garnered both his siblings' attention. Naruto stared neutrally, not shocked his brother agreed with his thought process. Narumi, on the other hand, looked betrayed. Menma gathered his thoughts before continuing, "Putting all the Hokage's children will do nothing but put a target on our team's back." He received a firm nod from Naruto and a shaky one from Narumi. "If our team is all killed, the Hokage loses all his children. It would make sense that one of us would be on a separate team," the blonde male gave his hypothesis. Narumi didn't want to admit it, but it was logical. On the other hand, Naruto thought, "Chuchan just doesn't want me around Naramani and Menmani." Naruto knew where his father placed his pride. It was in the two Jinchuriki. Everyone's joyous mood turned dark and depressed. Naruto wanted to brighten the mood of the trio, gave a sly look to Menma. "How much do you want to bet Narumi goes running over to Sasuke when he comes in?" Narumi's eyes grew larger than normal, and a pink hue dusted her cheeks. Menma saw his brother's coy smile and played along. "Running?" He snorted before continuing, "More like skipping." The two laughed at one another as they teased their sister. Narumi shook her head adamantly while shaking her hands out in front of her. No, me and Sasuke-kun are just friends," she pleaded her case. Sasuke-kun, the two brothers shouted questioningly in a teasing manner. They both caught her slip up. Narumi puffed her cheeks for her teasing but quickly gained a devious smirk of her own. Smiling like the cat that ate the canary. "What about Hinata-san?" Narumi said while acting worried. Menma immediately stopped laughing and became worried, asked, "What about Hinata-kun?" "He just saw her last night, and she was fine." Narumi grew a victorious smirk as she teasingly said back, "Hinata-kun." Menma mimicked his sister's reaction when they teased her. The three siblings laughed and made merry at each other's expense. Slowly but surely, the rest of their graduating class came into the room. Most of the civilian-born students came in first. Many of them wore their hitayat on their heads. The triplets let out some minor greetings to the few that gave them some. Then came their friends and other clan heirs. Sasuke came in first. He wore a navy blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar, white shorts, and, for a time, white arm warmers. His blue hitayat across his head proudly along with his clan's symbol on the back of his shirt. As the brother predicted, Narumi was the first to greet the black-haired teen. "Oi! Sasuke! Are you excited?" she called out before getting out of her seat and walking up to him. Sasuke looked down at her coolly, and a rare smirk dawned on his face. "Kinda," Sasuke said plainly. Sasuke never outwardly showed his emotions to most of his class. Only his family ever really saw him smile or hear him laugh. However, Narumi always found a way to make his emotions come out. Closing her eyes, tilting her head, and smiling, she spoke, "Good, hope we get to work with one another." She was glad the quiet boy was coming out of his shell in front of everyone. He always looked so sad when half of his clan was killed. She wanted to change that. The door slid open, and another clan member came into the classroom. It was the wild and loyal Kiba. He walked into the room, and his loyal dog, Akamaru, came barreling in, right beside him. He stood tall, shot his arms up, and let out a loud, "Wahoo!" The shout gained everyone's attention. The Inuzuka wore dark grayish pants reaching to his calves and a gray, hooded fur-lined coat, with the hood on his head. Unseen by the teens, he had a plate of armor and fishnet undershirt his hoodie. His gray hitayat is proudly displayed on his head. "Today is the day," Kiba proclaimed as he strode up to the trio, his fangs showing in his smile. The two Uzumaki Namikaze boys rolled their eyes at their fellow teen, while Narumi smiled politely at the Inuzuka before going back to talking to Sasuke. "Hey, Kiba," Menma greeted his friend with a high five. Kiba nodded his head in a greeting before his eyes landed on the other male Uzumaki Namikaze. Kiba found the Naruto odd, to say the least. Naruto wasn't mean or arrogant, but he was not as social as his siblings. However, Naruto was just as well trained. Kiba had been trounced in every sparring match they had ever had with one another. It wounded his pride, considering that Naruto was the dead last of their class. It was fair to say Kiba held a grudge. Then there was his canine partner, who didn't want anything to do with Naruto. In fact, Akamaru hated being around Naruto. He looked to see his partner sitting in his usual spot. Akamaru went to follow his master but immediately stopped in his tracks when he Kiba over to the odd-smelling black-haired teen. That boy was a predator, and Akamaru made sure to tell Kiba that. Still, Kiba went over, but it was his life, and he could always get a new owner. Akamaru crawled under the desk and tried to get some rest. He hoped he didn't get paired with the boy. Naruto looked at Kiba's partner go under the desks. It bothered him that Akamaru didn't like him. What did I do, he wondered. He liked animals in all shapes and sizes. Even since the dog was a pup, it kept away from him. He sighed sadly before paying attention to Kiba's and Menma's conversation. The door slammed open, and in came another noisy voice called out, "Sasuke-kun. Are you here yet?" All conversation stopped, and the clan heirs all sweat dropped. Ino Yamanaka had arrived, and she made her presence known, as always. Ino wears a purple outfit consisting of a high-collared blouse and matching apron skirt. Bandages were wrapped on her abdomen and legs, small hoop earrings, her hitayat worn as a belt, and for a time, white arm warmers. Ino's eyes landed on Sasuke, and she blitzed at him before colliding with him. Ino jumped onto his back and hugged him around his neck before rubbing her cheek into his cheek. "Sasuke-kun, I am so glad you're here early," she said in a lovey-dovey tone. "This could be the last we see each other till who knows when. Are you going to miss me?" she whined out, all the while she continued to snuggle into him. Sasuke was disturbed and annoyed. His eyebrow and eye twitched in annoyance as he dealt with the unwanted snuggling. What did he do to deserve her attention? Ino, get off, Sasuke said with his patience running thin. Narumi intervened and diplomatically asked, Ino-san, I don't think Sasuke-kun likes that. Can you please get off? Ino finally noticed the blonde and said nonchalantly, oh, hi there, Narumi-kun. Sorry I didn't notice you. Narumi awkwardly laughed, not letting the slight go unnoticed. Ino laid her head on Sasuke's shoulder with a content look. I don't want to get off. I'm too comfy, she mumbled out, not wanting to get off. Sasuke had enough and decided for her as he threw her off with a heave. Ino let out a yelp as she hit the hard wooden floor on her bottom. Puffing out her cheeks in a pout, she rubbed her sore bottom and sulked out, meanie. She received no pity from any of her friends or classmates. Kiba grinned and whispered to the Uzumaki Namikaze brothers, looks like Sasuke chose his preference. He got a couple of death glares from the brothers. Sasuke heard as well and glared at the dog boy. Naruto's nose picked up the familiar scent of bugs and forest. He glanced at the spot he knew it would be. Shino Aburame sat in a chair in his usual spot. Shino wore his customary dark round sunglasses, but the rest of his outfit was new. He wore brown pants that stopped just above his ankles and a sea-green jacket with a high, upturned collar. His blue high-tie was tied around his head. On his finger was one of his Kikaichu, and he was intently staring at it. The Kikaichu were the Aburame's weapons and companions. The Kikaichu are insects that would listen to the commands of the Aburame as long as they lived in their body. Oi! Shino! When you get here? Naruto asked while leaving his brother and Kiba to their devices. The Aburame greeted the lone member of their age that came to greet him. Hello, Naruto-san. I've just arrived. Shino liked that someone was willing to extend a hand in friendship to him. His clan was ostracized for their abilities. Naruto didn't mind as he was willing to talk to anyone and felt a kindred spirit in the Aburame. They both were simple people. Yet, like Akumaru, his Kikaichu were deathly afraid of the black-haired teen. They skittered and screeched within him, telling him in their own way to get away. Still, Naruto never showed any hostility towards him or his insects. Even now, they relayed warnings. Naruto offered his hand to the teen, and Shino shook it. After the greeting, Naruto asked Shino, excited to become a shinobi? Shino nodded quickly and said, yes, I am. Why? Because it is my duty to lead my clan one day. Shino's word echoed through Naruto. Shino was okay with doing a job that was decided for him and was gladly willing to shoulder the responsibility. Naruto caught movement out of the corner of his eyes. It was Menma, and he was going to the door. Naruto saw the familiar blue-haired beauty who was smitten with his brother and his brother with her. Hinata had slid the door open so quietly that Naruto hadn't noticed, but Menma did. The Hyuga wore a cream-colored hooded jacket with a fire symbol on the upper sleeves and fur around the cuffs and hem. She also wears navy blue pants with a kunai holder wrapped around her right thigh and keeps her high-tie loosely around her neck. When Menma approached the girl, immediately her pale cheeks went scarlet. Naruto wasn't sure what they were talking about, but it was just simple talk, if he had to guess. However, if looking at Hinata's expression was any indication, it must be something that the girl loved. Menma smiled warmly at the pale, violet-eyed girl and said, you ready? Menma had been aware of the girl's apprehension about becoming a shinobi. However, he assured her that she would be great. Hinata shared with Menma her dream, and he had promised to help her achieve it. Hinata averted her eyes and poked her fingers together in a nervous manner. I am Hope Sue. She did the best she could not to stutter. Her father had made it clear that a clan head didn't stutter or show indecision. Menma smiled coolly, held up one finger, and said, that was only one word stuttered through. You're getting better, Hinata-kun. His bright smile made the Hyuga nearly turn scarlet at the praise. He always made her feel like a bubbling mess whenever they talked. The door slid open again, and a slothful voice said, "Troublesome. Can you please let us in?" It was Shikamaru and his usual compatriot, Choji. Shikamaru was wearing a short-sleeved gray jacket with green-edged sleeves and the rudimentary Nara clan symbol on the back, under which is a green-lined mesh armor t-shirt. He also wears brown pants, a pair of his clan's traditional silver hoop earrings, and wears his blue high-tie around his left arm. Choji was in the middle of eating an early morning snake of what looked like pretzels. Choji wore a green, short-sleeved haori with a long, white scarf over a white shirt, with the kanji for food on it and silver hoop earrings. His high-tie was placed on his head like a bandana, his hair stuck out the sides giving a horn-like appearance. Menma and Hinata stepped aside, and the duo walked by. Even with his mouth full, Choji blurted out, "Thank you." The two then went to their usual spots. Shikamaru immediately put his head on the desk and was fast asleep. Choji continued to eat next to him, although his chewing was lowered to not wake his friend up. Naruto sighed as he followed Shikamaru's actions. He laid his head in a manner facing away from the door. If he didn't, he would have seen his friend come in. Sakura had gotten a few minutes earlier but hid in the bathroom to try and calm herself. She splashed some water on her face and checked out her physique. She had noticed how most of her classmates, especially ones from clans, looked ready to be a shinobi. Their muscles were more refined, while she might as well be a pole. She had passed to become a shinobi solely on her brains. Her schoolwork was above all of her classmates, but the practical aspects were things she just skimmed by. She had been extremely nervous about today. She had many thoughts coursing through her mind. Am I going to be able to do this? What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't work with my teammates? What if I die? What if I get them killed? Those were just some of them, but she gained her courage and returned to the classroom. As she reached for the door, she noticed her hand was quivering in her other one as well. A pit began to form in her stomach as her fear took over. Her heart. She grabbed her outstretched wrist with the opposite hand. She took another calming breath before sliding the door open. Sakura's ears picked up the voice of all her classmates, and their calming voices helped her step in. She was greeted with the sight of her friend chatting like normal. However, her confidence was shaken again by the outfits they wore. They all screamed practicality, and here she was wearing a red cheapao dress with short sleeves with slits along the sides accompanied by a zipper and white circular designs. She also wears tight dark green bike shorts with a shuriken holster around her right thigh, blue sandals, and the standard Konoha high-tie was worn as a hairband. She fiddled with her long pink hair nervously. Ino was the first to notice her and went to greet her. "Oi. Forehead. I knew you made it." Forehead was the endearing term that only Ino was allowed to use. It was an inside joke between the two girls. Her nickname was due to Sakura having a large forehead when her hair parted. Sakura had a name for Ino as well. "Hey, Inobuta." "Yeah, just barely," Sakura responded. Ino was given the name as it was the only thing Sakura could come up with. "How long you've been here?" Sakura asked, knowing Ino wasn't a morning person. Ino flicked her long ponytail over her shoulder as she acted like this early morning was regular. "Been here for about 10 minutes, Ino said while trying to act cool. Ino quickly pulled the girl in and whispered into Sakura's ear, "Naruto-kun at 10 o'clock. Ino smiled mischievously when Sakura's eyes snapped to where Ino told her. Ino then walked back to hang on Sasuke and try to get his attention away from Narumi. Sakura saw the spiky mop of black hair of the eldest Uzumaki Namikaze's sibling and started up the stairs to go meet him. Unknown to her, the eyes of Narumi, Sasuke, Menma, and Hinata. When she made it to both Shino and Naruto, she saw Naruto still had his eyes closed. She greets Shino with a simple head nod and returns one. She then hovered her face over him and said, "Hey, Naruto." Naruto's head shot up, making contact with her chin, and it hurt. Naruto had nearly fallen asleep when a familiar voice entered his ears. He hadn't seen her in a couple of days and wanted to talk to her. He shot his head up to look for her when the back of his head hit something really, really hard. His hand immediately went to the sore spot and rubbed it, trying to dull the pain. Bringing his eyes up, he saw Sakura mimicking his action, only for her to do it on her chin. "Sakura?" he asked through clenched teeth. Seeing she was in distress, he put two and two together. "Sorry, Sakura," Naruto apologizes. He felt like the biggest dope in the whole village. Sakura could help but laugh at Naruto, thinking it was his fault in her own stupidity. "No, no. I'm the one who's sorry," she assured him while waving him off with her free hand. "I got too close and surprised you," she explained as she stopped rubbing her chin. Naruto felt a little guilty that she was taking all the fault. "Still." Naruto started. Annoyed at his persistence, she firmly stated, "It's fine." She was at fault, and she didn't need Naruto taking the fall for her mistake. The two stared at one another for an awkward moment before Sakura smiled cheerily. "So, you excited to start being a shinobi?" Naruto shot her a dry look. Ever since Sakura found out about Naruto's feelings about being a shinobi, she would always ask him this. She wanted to assure him he had a friend willing to hear him out. Naruto shrugged his shoulders before leaning down on the desk. "Like I told you what my dad said, just gotta make chunin, and then I can do what I want," he told her for the umpteenth time. Sakura was indifferent about that. She knew his passion was seeing the world, but that meant leaving the village. Leaving people that cared about him behind. Pushing those sad feelings aside, she says, "Well, I hope we're on the same team. We can still see each other if we're not, right?" They had only really hung out at the academy, but there were times when she was invited, she couldn't make it. Naruto smiled at the question. "Of course," he responded. Besides Shino, Sakura was the only friend he had made. Unlike Shino, she was talkative, and he liked talking to her. Irika had now opened the door and called out, "All right, sit down and shut up." The graduating class respected their teacher enough that all their conversations ceased, and the students went back to their seats. Ino didn't have to wait long before Sakura sat down, and through the corner of her mouth, she cracked, "Have fun talking to your dark, mysterious lover." Ino loved to tease her friend about being attracted to the oldest Uzumaki Namikes. Ino thought it was sweet that neither of them could see the chemistry they had. She was jealous of her friend but happy at the same time. In a sickly sweet, dangerous voice, and with a vein throbbing from her forehead, she told her friend, "Drop dead, Inobuta. She and Naruto were just friends. It's not like he could anyway. Would he even want someone like me?" She doubted it. She looked away from her friend so Ino couldn't see her expression. What was she compared to someone like Ino and Hinata, who came from clans? She didn't have secret techniques, or Irika made it to his podium, placed his paperwork on it, and gave a once-over to the class. This was a class that would be remembered for years to come. All the clan heirs were ready for the life of a shinobi. He had the privilege of teaching this group, and he was sad to see them grow. "I can't wait to see how much they grow," he thought with a smirk. "Today, you are now shinobi in Kunoichi. You are no longer students. Today you take the first steps in this life. I wish you well. I am proud of you," he declared as his eyes landed on Naruto. The anomaly of the class. The boy flashed brilliance but was never invested in his education. It perplexed the teacher. All of you, even though he said it to the class, he meant it for Naruto. Irika got to the main point of assembling the class one last time. He took the list that was provided by the Hokage and held it up for the class. "I have your team assignments. When I read them off, please remember the number and members. Also, no complaining about assignments." These teams were selected by Hokage-sama, Irika told them. The Hokage's words were final. While there were some teams he didn't fully agree with, he would do what the Hokage wanted. Now then, Team 1 will include. Irika read off the names, and slowly but surely, people cheered or groaned. Naruto toned most of the teams until he started hearing more familiar names. Irika flipped the pages of the list and read off, Team 7 will include, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruna Sakura, and Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Sakura's head shot up after hearing the names. She had to restrain herself from smiling like an idiot. She was with two of the best fighters in class. Sasuke looked up immediately at Naruto and was pleasantly surprised by the revelation. Someone who he could go toe-a-toe with to get stronger. Naruto looked at the two he was teamed up with. Sakura and Sasuke are nice and all, but was this team really for him? He would have to see and find out. However, he looked over to the one person that cared where he went. Seeing Narumi heartbroken made him grimace. She had such high hopes they would all be together. Naruto offered her a sympathetic smile. Irika overlooked the silent drama and continued to read off the teams. Team 8 will be comprised of Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Inuzuka Kiba, Irika said. Kiba howled in appreciation for his team, his eyes lingering on Hinata. The team's lone female gave a small smile to the two males she would be working with. Shino gave a simple nod to the girl. Irika ignored Kiba's antics and read off another team. Team 9 is still in rotation, so Akimichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru, and Yamanaka Ino are assigned to Team 10. Irika didn't get a second to breathe before someone called out in despair. Ino yelled out in frustration as she was given. Why me? Why do I get stuck with Lazybones and Fatty? She was oblivious that Shikamaru was holding back Choji from kicking her ass. Shikamaru was red-faced as he restrained Choji in a full Nelson to stop. Choji snorted out steam through his nose as he strained against his friend. Choji was a patient boy with a kind heart, however, used the term fat in reference to him, and you better look out. Irika made it to the last team and read it off. Team 11 will only be a two-man team consisting of Uzumaki Namikaze Menma and Uzumaki Namikaze Narumi. Menma nodded his head in acceptance. The two of them would be enough to deal with any situation along with their Jonin sensei. On the other hand, his sister was a mixed bag of emotions. She looked happy to be with him but sad their brother was left out. Menma tried to warn her, but her naivety clouded her mind. It would have been foolish to believe that. This is the life that was chosen for us, Menma thought coldly. The time for kids' games was over. Narumi's scrunched face looked down at the desk, and her folded hands in front of her gripped each other tightly. This wasn't fair. The three of them were brought into this world together, and they were supposed to become shinobi together. Why? 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 We were supposed to stick together, no matter what. Why would Two-chan split us up? It was a question she would demand an answer to. Irika was finished reading off the list and neatly put the papers on the teacher's desk. He looked to address the class. Now you have till 1 p.m. to eat lunch and get back here to meet your Jonin sensei. Before taking his stuff to leave, he gives the class one last piece of advice: remember your teams are your family when you are away from your family. Lean on each other, learn from each, and I promise you will form a bond that can never be severed. He gave a lopsided smirk and walked out of the room. Kiba immediately jumped to his feet and cheered, "Yahoo! Come on, team, let's get some grub." He got a bark of agreement from Akamaru. He got on the top of the desk and leaped all the way down to the ground level. He looked back and saw his teammates still in their same spots. He waved them over while shouting, "Come on, slowpokes." He went out the door without waiting to see if they followed. Hinata looked at Shino for confirmation to follow. "Should we follow, Shino-san?" Shino looked at her with a raised eyebrow at the request. She didn't need his permission to go. He shrugged his shoulders and followed after their rambunctious teammate. The shy Hyuga followed the tall Aburame out of the room. Naruto took a page from Kiba's book and walked down to the door to the classroom. He walked out and headed anywhere away from the academy. Oi! Narutonii, his sister's voice called out behind him. Naruto sighed in annoyance as he turned to see Narumi and Menma running to catch up after him along with his team. She caught up and began reprimanding him, "You left your team behind." Sakura and Sasuke looked disappointingly at Naruto. Naruto sighed as he then asked begrudgingly, "You guys want to get something to eat?" Sakura nodded enthusiastically while Sasuke crossed his arms but did give a subtle nod. He was more interested in seeing where Narumi was going than Naruto. Menma was not surprised by his brother's loner attitude. He just wanted to get something to eat. The exit just happened to be in the direction where everyone else was going. Narumi clapped twice lightly to gain everyone's attention. "Perfect. I know the best place to eat in town," she cheered before taking the lead with Sasuke right behind her. Naruto knew where they were going and instantly deflated into a slouch. Menma had wanted to go with Hinata to eat, but his sister's idea was better. "I like the way you think, Nei-san," Menma said as he passed Naruto. Ramen was food from the gods, after all. Drool slightly poured out of the corner of his mouth. Sakura noticed her new teammate's antics and went over to ask, "Where are we going?" She wanted to know what made Narumi and Menma act like they'd never eaten before and made Naruto dread the very idea. Naruto had leaned against the wall dramatically and, in an ominous tone, spoke out, "A place of pure evil." He then began to walk again, and Sakura followed. Ramen Ichiraku Naruto smelt the place before he even laid eyes on it. Narumi and Menma were already on a barstool ordering when they came in. This place was where their mother procured dinner for the family when she was either busy or didn't feel like cooking. Their father would come here to get an apology meal for their mother when he was in the doghouse. The little ramen stand was owned and operated by father and daughter duo Tuchi and Ayam. Tuchi was a man in his early 40s, and Ayam was in her late 20s. They were well known for their ramen and being the Uzumaki Namike's favorite place to get food. Tuchi talked to the animated Narumi and Menma, who were placing their orders. Tuchi was thrilled, they brought another customer for them to serve. The young Uchiha was simple and straight to the point, which he didn't mind. It wasn't lost on the older man the glances he stole of the female Uzumaki Namike's. The flaps from the front of his store were pushed aside, and came in two more recent academy graduates. He looked up to see a teen who strongly resembled the Hokage. The only difference was the black hair. The young man held the flaps open for another person to come in, his female companion. She was almost like Kushina when she was a teenager. In fact, for a moment, in their place was a young Minato and Kushina going on a date. Tuchi rubbed his eyes, and the two teens were back. "Hello, new customer. What can I get you today?" he greets before asking politely. Naruto walked up to the bar of the little ramen stand, and Sakura slid in beside him. Naruto took a menu and scanned it for something edible. Seeing his limited options, he asked, "Shioyaki, please." It was the only thing on the menu that wasn't soaked in broth and salt. Smoked fish was better than nothing. Tuchi sweat dropped at the request. His little restaurant was known for its ramen, and this young didn't want to try it? He didn't know if he should feel insulted. He glanced at the pink-haired teen and waited for her order. Sakura was feeling a tiny bit overwhelmed. It was the first time Naruto and she went out to eat. This was completely different from their lunches at the academy. However, she noticed Naruto was not happy to be eating here. "I'll have the chicken ramen," she said before setting the menu aside. Menma shouted out, "Really, Nizan? No ramen? What's wrong with you?" Menma was eager for his meal and couldn't believe his brother did everything in his power to avoid ramen. Tuchi didn't believe his ears. There was another Uzumaki Namike's, and he had never met them before. He would have to offer him a bowl of ramen on the house. Tuchi wrote the orders down and cheerily said, "Coming right up." The man disappeared around the back into the kitchen. Naruto leaned his elbow on the counter before placing his head on his palm. He groaned in annoyance at his predicament. Why did we come here? Naruto groaned out. Narumi rocked on her stool and chirpily said, Come on. You have to spend time with your teammates. Shouldn't you be spending time with yours? Naruto fired back. Sakura looked at her new teammate before glancing at his sister. Sakura was an only child and had never had to share much. She found what was happening to be both interesting and endearing. Menma and Narumi looked at each other with dry expressions. We already know each other, she said nonchalantly. She then looked over Naruto's shoulder to spy on the pink-haired teen. She had never interacted with Sakura a lot in the academy. She was more of Ino's friend than hers. Besides, I want to be friends with them. They are going to be guarding Naruni's back, she said. She couldn't be there to help her brother, so she would have to rely on Sakura and Sasuke to do that job for her. Naru. Sakura let the word dance on her lips. Naruto shot her a scrutinizing look, telling her to drop it. Sakura smiled, she had a teasing name to call him by. Sasuke said nothing but did uncharacteristically snort at the nickname from Narumi. Order up. Tucci called out before reappearing from the kitchen with 2 steaming bowls of ramen in his hands. Tucci barely put the bowls down before the Narumi, and Menma dug in with gusto. Relieved that he had a few moments of quiet, Naruto turned toward Sakura. She tried her best to contain her smile but failed miserably between giggles. Go ahead, let it out, Naruto breathed out. Sakura started lightly laughing and had to cover her mouth with one of her hands to stop it from becoming full-blown laughter. She choked down the rest of it before waving him off. She calmed herself before saying, No, I kinda like it. I'm an only child, so I never experienced that before. She knew Naruto was slightly bothered by it, but he did enjoy it. Naruto snarkily said, You say that, but try dealing with it since you were kids. Narumi spoke to the pink-haired teen, Sakura-san, what is your specialty as a kunoichi? She wanted to know what Sakura brought to the table for her team. Sasuke seemed to agree as he leaned back on his stool to look at her. Sakura was taken aback by the sudden question. It was a question she asked herself all the time. She squirmed uncomfortably in her seat to buy time as she rapidly thought of something to say. She blurted out the first thing that came to mind, I'm really smart. As the words came out, she realized how lame it was. Menma was less than impressed with the response. Menma huffed before saying, That isn't much. He took a sip of water from his glass. In his mind, Sakura was a typical civilian. No special ability, no physical advantage, no nothing. She was dead weight to her team. You won't live. Naruto cut him off. He growled with a glare and tone that promised pain, Menma, drop it. The two stared each other down, daring the other to take action. Order up. Tucci called out and brought out the kitchen a single plate and 3 bowls of ramen to the counter. He placed 1 bowl of vegetable ramen in front of Sasuke, a bowl of chicken ramen in front of Sakura, and a plate of shioyaki in front of Naruto. Along with Naruto's food, he placed a bowl of pork ramen. Naruto looked at the additional bowl of ramen in bewilderment. I didn't order this, he told the older man. He didn't want to take it if it was someone else's order. Tucci gave a big belly laugh before saying, It's on the house. I can't let an Uzumaki Namikaze leave this place without giving their first bowl of ramen. The family could single-handedly keep him in business by the amount of ramen they buy from him. She smiled warmly and waited for Naruto to take his first taste. Naruto's nose inhaled, to him, the sickening aroma. The mixture of broth and salt made the teen swallow down his disgust. He picked it up and offered it back to the ramen chef, No, thank you. I don't like ramen. Tucci felt himself shatter into a million pieces. How could someone not like ramen? More accurately, how could someone not like his ramen? How could an Uzumaki Namikaze not like his ramen? Feeling defeated, he took the bowl from the teen and disappeared back into his kitchen. Sasuke watched the chef leave and finally spoke, seeing the man's shattered demeanor. "You broke him," was his blunt response. He saw Narumi and Menma hold gaping expressions at what their brother did. Narumi could form words as her mouth would go small before going big again. A small piece of noodle hung on her cheek, and Sasuke turned her by the chin to face him. Sasuke's fingers gently took the noodle from her cheek, his fingernail brushed against her cheek. Feeling his touch, she turned red-cheeked. He put the noodle in his mouth, ate it, and licked his lips. He gave a long pleasing hum and said, "Good." Sasuke turned back to eat his ramen. All the while, Narumi turned a shade of red that would have made Kushina's hair look white. Sasuke smirked discreetly while he ate. He knew what he did and was proud. Menma wasn't unaware of how the two danced around one another. His sister was attracted to the Uchiha, and he was attracted to her. He was just shocked it was Sasuke that made the first move. "I think you broke her," Naruto said back before eating on the fish on his plate. "Good for you, Sasuke," he mentally cheered for Sasuke. Someone was finally able to make his blabbermouth energetic sister into a blubbering mess. Sakura stared out of jealousy at the actions performed by her other male teammate. It was a surprise to see the stoic teen show any form of affection, and it was so smooth. She wanted that. Academy. After the weird lunch outing, Naruto, his siblings, and his team were back at the academy. Everyone looked ready to meet their Jonin senseis. Most of them have come and gone already, leaving only 4 teams left to get picked up. All the clan heirs sat with their teams and waited, but they didn't have to wait long. The first one to collect their squad was Asuma Sarutobi. The man came into the room with a cigarette in his mouth and looked over the room before calling out, "Team 10, you're with me." He waited for them to come to him before Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji were gone with their new instructor. The next to come was a stern woman who was a raven-haired beauty. She didn't bother looking over the room. "Team 8, I am Yuhi Kurenai. Come with me now," she demanded. Kiba and Hinata practically scampered down to the woman. Shino calmly and coolly walked down to meet his new instructor and leader. Hinata glanced up at Menma, and he shot her a wink with a thumbs up. She nodded back and left with the woman. A half-hour went by before Narumi stood up and shouted in annoyance, "What is taking them so long?" She pulled on her ponytail and was ready to bounce off the walls. Luckily her prayers were answered as a body came crashing through the classroom doors. As the dust and debris settled, it was revealed to the Uzumaki Namikaze to be a familiar face. "Kakashinii," was the chorus response from the 3 Uzumaki Namikaze. Sasuke and Sakura stared in shock at the silver-haired man sitting in a daze. Kakashi moaned in pain as he whined out, "Kushina ni." Wobbling on shaky legs, he stood up and started to dust himself off. "Did you have to kick me through the wall?" Through the damaged doorframe came Kushina, all dressed up in her ninja gear. The woman's arms were crossed, and her foot tapped in annoyance against the wooden floor. "I wouldn't have to if you didn't fight me coming here, Kakashikin," Kushina scolded. She knew Kakashi had that habit of being late to everything in honor of Obito. She tracked him down to his home, sitting in his room reading one of Jiraiya's books. She dragged him here and got him to the classroom door. She gave him a gentle shove with her foot when he refused to go in. Sighing dramatically, he lazily looked over the remaining team and exhaled, "Team 7 meet me on the roof." He shunshin away in a cloud of smoke. Kushina was stunned by Kakashi's actions and gritted her teeth at his exit. He was not getting away that easily. Disregarding Kakashi for a moment, she addressed the teens. Her motherly instincts kicked in as she saw all her children together. She was ready to train all of them. This was her chance to spend time with her eldest and show him the ropes to be a good shinobi. "Team 11, come with me," her words laced with joy. The 2 teams went to their designated leaders. Narumi and Menma came to her, while Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura left to follow Kakashi. Naruken? Where are you going?" she wondered. She told her husband what she wanted. Sasuke continued to walk towards the stairs, while Naruto stopped, and Sakura paused to wait for him. Sasuke had an inkling at what Kushina's reaction would be. He had seen his mother react when his father had messed up royally. He still had nightmares from the time she nearly killed the Uchiha patriarch. Naruto looked at his mother before explaining, "I'm assigned to Team 7, Kazan." All the teens felt the room drop several degrees as Kushina smiled sweetly. With her eyes closed and a smile on her face, she cheerily said, "I see. Well, I'll talk to Minato-kun tonight." She walked out of the room, and her 2 children followed. She had a job to do. Her husband's punishment would come later when she saw him. 2 of her children were now both nervous about what was in store. Naruto gave a small prayer to Kami and hoped his father lived to see tomorrow. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke made it to the roof in a handful of minutes. Leaning against the railing was Kakashi, his nose deep into a book. His eye lazily glanced at them before going back to his reading. With his free hand, he held up a single finger before he swished them in the direction of a bench to sit. Sasuke and Sakura thought nothing of it while Naruto grimaced. He could guess why they were told to wait. The 3 sat on the bench as their sensei continued to read from that book. Sakura looked at the 2 boys of her team, and Sasuke looked at her with the same level of confusion. Then they both looked at Naruto, and he looked ready to burst. "You'll see," was what he told them. Abruptly Kakashi closed his book before letting out a satisfying sigh. "Phew, another chapter down," he praised. Sakura and Sasuke nearly fell over at the reason he made them wait. Naruto's irritation was easily written on his face. Kakashi slipped his book into the pouch on his back before walking in front of his newly formed team. His lone eye looked them over critically. Sasuke stared back at him, sizing him up. Naruto looked frustratingly at him, and Sakura slightly jumped when he looked at her. "My first impression is," he left them in suspense, which caused Sasuke to lean forward with his elbow on his knee, and Sakura sat up straighter. "You all suck." The 2 deflated, and Naruto sked at the answer before sitting back. He expected a remark like that. "Why don't you introduce yourselves to each other?" Kakashi encouraged. Sakura interjected and countered Kakashi's suggestion, "We've been in class with each other for years, Kakashi-san. Why don't you go first? You're the stranger here." Sakura and Naruto had shared enough lunches on this roof talking to one another, and Sasuke had told them enough about himself to satisfy her. Kakashi rubbed his chin, contemplating what the girl said. "Not bad." She pointed out the flaw and gave a counter-suggestion. Kakashi hummed for a moment and said, "All right. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I like many and don't like many things. My dreams. As for my hobbies, well, I have a lot of hobbies." He then looked at the team and got his desired reactions. He didn't know if these teens would pass, so why get attached to them? "He only told us his name." Sakura internally shouted. "Is this guy for real?" Sasuke thought to himself. Naruto grunted in amusement before truly introducing the man. "His name is Hitaki Kakashi. He likes dogs and reading those books by Ero Sennin. He dislikes people who abandon their friends and people who hate his favorite books. I don't know his dream, but it's reading those stupid books for his hobbies," Naruto disclosed. His other 2 teammates looked upon Naruto with awe. Kakashi glanced at Naruto and groaned out, "Naruto, that wasn't very nice. Now I'm not as mysterious and cool." He may not be ready to bond with his students, but he wanted to make himself mysterious so they would be wary of him. It would at least get them to leave him alone. Naruto brushed off his complaint and fired back with, "Get over yourself." Kakashi was cool, but his ego and laziness overshadowed that aspect. Naruto practically worshipped the ground that Kakashi walked on when he was younger, and sometimes he still hung on every word. Kakashi was just too slow for Naruto. Kakashi then clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. With all eyes on him, he announced what they were to do next. Now, since you all know me. He brought his hand up with his index finger pointed out. He scanned over them before landing on Sakura. You can go next, Pinky, he remarked as he called Sakura by her most distinguishing feature. A vein bulged from Sakura's head as she seeded out, Pinky. He was lucky he was the team leader, or she'd kick his ass all over this roof. Kakashi I smiled and playfully teased, I have to give my cute little Genin nicknames. He waved her anger off and motioned for her to continue. Sakura turned her nose up at the man's attempt for peace. However, she would do as he asked. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like learning new things, my family, and reading. I dislike bullies and perverts. She let her last words sink in while staring at Kakashi. The man was unbothered by the comment, so she continued, my dreams for the future. Well, I'm not completely sure yet. Sakura used her right hand to rub the upper part of her left arm to calm her nerves. She noticed the perplexed look from her new teammates. She wouldn't let that bother her. My hobbies are reading and studying, she finished on a positive note. Kakashi nodded his head in acceptance at what the girl shared. She was making her best traits known. It was clever of her. He catalogued what she said for later before pointing at Naruto, how about you, oh lovable Ototo. Naruto smirked at Kakashi before blurting out, I'm Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, and I like my family, the outside world, and my friend. I dislike bullies, close-minded people, and anyone who hurts my family. He leaned his head back to look up at the sky, and with a nostalgic tone, he said, my dream is to see this world and become the greatest warrior in the world. He grinned, then looked at Kakashi with a challenging stare, for hobbies, I like to draw, train, and explore. He was honest with them, he wanted to get to the rank of Chunin, and these people would help him get there. Sakura looked at Naruto with intrigue, knowing he was always the best at fighting. However, she was unaware of his want to be the best in the world. She knew he wanted to see the world, but the second part was surprising. She believed he could do it. I would love to see it happen, she cheered for him internally. Sasuke was intrigued by that prospect. He needed to go after his brother and bring him home. He knew Naruto was stronger than him, but he would make sure that changed. As soon as he could. Kakashi showed no outward expression. He just let his gaze linger for a moment before he moved on. Your turn, Sunshine, he called for Sasuke to share. Kakashi saw there were few positive or negative reactions from the young Uchiha. It reminded him of himself when he was young and arrogant. Sasuke leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like learning new jutsu, training, and getting stronger. My dislikes are people who insult my clan and things that are too sweet. My dream, he had divulged more than he had in years to anyone his age, is to find my brother. He ended and didn't continue into his hobbies. He wasn't here to make friends. Kakashi felt for the young man, and he had no doubt that Fugaku revealed the true reason for Itachi's actions. Itachi was called a traitor, but he saved the village. He was a true hero of Konoha. He then clapped his hands before abruptly saying, okay, now that is all settled, here is your first assignment, meet me tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp at Training Ground 7. He then stood to leave down the stairs of the academy building. He paused at the doorway before turning his head to look over his shoulder and offered one last thing, I would skip breakfast if I were you. He then started walking again. Sakura called out to him before disappearing, why? Kakashi's voice echoed out of the stairwell, you'll throw up. He didn't elaborate why as he left. The Sakura and Sasuke looked at each other with worry. This was all so sudden, what was happening tomorrow? The only one that wasn't affected by Kakashi's words was Naruto, and he was letting out a long, drawn-out yawn. Naruto stretched out all the cramps he got before sitting up. Might want to ignore him and arrive 2 hours later, he remarked as he walked over to the roof's railing. He liked to stare out into the sky and imagine flying amongst the clouds. He wished for him, and Kryngin could do that one day. Sasuke's gaze focused on the black-haired teen. It was in Sasuke's best interest to listen to what he had to say. It was clear Naruto and Kakashi had a history. Naruto knew more about Kakashi than either of them. Why? Sasuke pressed. Any information, no matter how small, was good to have. Naruto didn't look at Sasuke but held up his pointer and middle fingers. First, he arrives late to everything by at least 2 hours, Naruto explained the first reason before putting his middle finger down. Second, he's trying to make us show up tired and weak. So eat something, but nothing too heavy, he put down his index finger when he finished speaking. Naruto looked over, and his new teammates both accepted his answers. Seeing his words sunk in, Naruto hopped on the railing and shot them a 2-finger salute. See ya tomorrow. Naruto then leaned off the railing and fell off. Sasuke and Sakura walked over to the railing, and looking down, they saw Naruto walking away from the academy. Waterfall Cave. Naruto splashed through the waterfall and walked through to meet his friend. He called out, "Hey! You hear lizard breath?" His words echoed off the walls but received no callback. Suddenly, something struck from the shadows and smacked Naruto on the top of his head. A lump started to form on the spot where he was struck. He fell to his knees and lightly whimpered while rubbing the steaming lump. You still need to get better at being aware of your surroundings. Kryngin came out of the shadows, a look of disappointment on his maw. Naruto shot a glare through teary eyes and shouted at the dragon, "Why would I be worried about, my friend, attacking me?" Naruto had only smelt one scent in the cave and knew it was the dragon. Nothing else dared to enter the cave in fear of the giant predator. Kryngin shook his head in disappointment. The boy was still young. He was entitled to be trusting and oblivious, he would learn that skill in time. "What brings you to my humble den?" Kryngin asked the teen. Naruto then flashed his arm and showed his Hitayat. "I made it," he said with a bit of disappointment. Even though he only needed to make Chunin, but that felt so far away. Kryngin detected Naruto's frustration and moved his head to nudge against the teen. Reassuringly the dragon said, "I am proud of you, young hatchling." The journey for his friend had been wrought with emotional turmoil. Naruto circled his arms around Kryngin's snout. "Thank you," Naruto said gratefully. His friend always found a way to make him smile. The two separated, and Kryngin spoke, "Your journey begins with this single step, and I know you will fulfill your dream." He then stomped away deeper into his den, and Naruto followed. "You are a dragon after all," Kryngin reminded the teen. Naruto smiled at the dragon's words. He then elbowed the great beast in its belly before running ahead of it. "Come on. I need to get some training in for tomorrow." Naruto yelled over his shoulder as he went in deeper. Kryngin shook his head before he went to follow. It seemed that the young dragon had to learn to respect his elders. Ramen Ichiraku Minato was late. Again. He promised his wife that he would make it home to go over the true Genin trials. That, and he knew Kushina would want to talk about the team assignments. She had demanded to get all their children on her team. However, putting Naruto with the other two was illogical. Naruto would be their weakest link, and the other two would have to bear his load on the advance missions. Also, Naruto's attitude could rub off on them, and they'd pick up his bad habits, which he didn't want. It was the only thing he could do. Still, he wasn't looking forward to seeing his wife, and to show he wasn't avoiding her, he would bring something home. He knew the one thing that would quell his wife's wrath. He passed the small banner to the ramen shop and called out, "Oi, Tukizan. I need a favor." If anyone could save his bacon, it would be the ramen chef. Tucci was still feeling gloomy from the earlier event of the day. He still couldn't believe his ramen was turned away by an Uzumaki Namikaze. That was like saying a fish hated water. Hearing the Hokage come in and ask for a favor made the chef perk up. "Oh ho, what can I do for you, Hokage-sama?" His curiosity outweighed his disappointment. This was beginning to feel like things were back to normal. Minato put his hands together like he was praying and begged, "Can you make Kushinaheim's favorite ramen? I'm in trouble." If the people could see the Hokage groveling to a ramen chef, he would be the talk of the village. Tucci nodded in understanding with a big smile on his face. He turned and called out, I need an order of special ramen. On the double." A woman's voice called out, "Right away, Tu-chan." She knew what it meant. In the kitchen, she chuckled to herself before starting to make the noodles. Minato sat in one of the counter stools and exhaled a breath of relief. He would live to see the morning sun. Tucci spoke to him as he sat, "How's the family?" Minato liked that the man was talking to him like a regular person. All through the day, it was Hokage-sama or Minato-sensei or some other form of someone talking to him like a leader or warrior. It was nice to act like a dad and talk about his beloved children. Minato leaned on the counter and tiredly explained, "Running me ragged. The life of a father was always a tiring one." Tucci laughed before saying, "You married that Spitfire. Did you expect anything less from her children?" Minato laughed at the quip before responding, "No, I didn't, and I love that most about her and them. They were like him as well. They had his logical and calm manner, but Kushina's spunky and energetic attitude came to the surface most of the time." Tucci smirked at Minato's words. "Good save," the chef quipped. The afternoon events dawned on him, and he added, "By the way. Met your eldest today. Bit of an oddball." Tucci was still a bit sore that the boy had turned down his ramen. Minato rolled his eyes. "Great. He's at it again," he internally groveled. "What did he do?" he breathed out in annoyance. He didn't hide his disappointment, which was readily displayed on his face. Tucci was perplexed by the Hokage's change of demeanor. With a confused expression, he carefully said, No. He didn't do anything. I mean, he did send back a free bowl of ramen. So I'm a little insulted, but he didn't do anything bad." The clarification brightened the Hokage's mood slightly. "It was just weird that today was the first time I've seen him," Tucci said while cleaning a bowl with a towel from behind the counter. Minato sat up and asked for clarification, "You mean today?" Minato's thoughts went back to reports he was given. Usagi had written that Naruto constantly visited the ramen stand. Tucci put the bowl on one of the shelves behind him. Turning his head to look over his shoulder, he gave the Hokage a surprising look. "No, I mean first time ever." Again he still found it odd. Almost all of them came here at least 3 times a week. Minato sat up straighter and asked for clarification, "Are you sure?" Something wasn't right, and a pit began to form in his stomach. He leaned forward on the edge of the stool, and his fingers dug into counters. Tucci was taken aback but answered, "Yeah, he looks just like you except for the violet eyes and black hair." It was the first time I ever saw him. Minato's jaw clenched, and his eyes went wide. He then slinked back. Tucci could see the man's internal struggle and gave him some space. Minato sat on the stool and contemplated. Now that he thought back, Naruto hated ramen. He didn't realize it when he was getting the reports. Umbu were meticulous in their reports, so there were no possible mistakes. A takeout bag was placed in front of him, and he stood up and grabbed the bag while giving the chef his thanks, "Thank you." Tucci nodded in acceptance as the Hokage left intensely concentrating while rubbing his chin. Was it something he said? Uzumaki Namikaze's residence. The front door to the house was opened slightly, and Minato peeked inside to check if the door was rigged with a trap. He stuck his head in to check if the coast was clear. When he stepped inside, the door abruptly shut behind him, and a dark aura began to emit from a dark shade with glowing yellow eyes. Minato chuckled uneasily as the dark being approached him, its expression of fury. He gave a nervous laugh before saying, "Kushina-chan. Hi, my darling, sexy and intelligent Suma." He would try to sweet talk and see how much trouble he was in. "You have 10 seconds to explain yourself." Kushina's voice came out nearly demonic. Minato put his hands out in front of himself and waved them to tell her to calm down. Now Kushina-chan, let's just talk." 5 seconds, Kushina interrupted, already doing her countdown. Minato didn't have long. He quickly pulled the bag out and held it in front of his wife. He turned his head away, afraid of the unknown outcome. The bag was then snatched from his grip. He opened an eye and saw his wife give the bag a quick whiff. "It's your favorite," Minato squeaked out. "Extra spicy?" Kushina inquired. "Absolutely," Minato confirmed. Then, like nothing ever happened, the aura disappeared, and Kushina's face transformed into a joyous expression. "Oh, honey, you're the best." Kushina cooed as she danced around with the ramen in her hand. Minato laughed at his wife's antics. He knew he was off the hook. For now, anyway. There was something he wanted to know. "Kushina, has Naruto ever been to Ichiraku with you or the other kids?" If anyone knew the answer, it would be her. Kushina stopped for a moment. It was an odd question. She thought back to all the times she had gone with the kids and couldn't picture Naruto with them. Kushina then realized something. "I never brought him there." "He really doesn't like ramen," she said offhandedly. The words were like a slap to the face. Naruto hated ramen. Thinking back, he did remember Naruto always having something else whenever they had ramen. Minato didn't want to believe it, but he did. Am I being fed false information? However, he didn't want to doubt his Umbu, they were the most loyal of his shinobi. He would let tomorrow decide if his fears were of merit. Kushina started to walk to the kitchen before stopping and calling over her shoulder, "By the way, you're not off the hook. You still have to explain why Naruken isn't on my team." Minato followed behind her and sat at the table. Kushina grabbed a pair of chopsticks and began digging, slurping down noodles that looked to be unending. Kushina chewed and swallowed, "All right." She took a napkin and dabbed her lips before continuing, "Tell me why you didn't give me Naruto." She looked her husband in the eyes wanting an honest answer. Minato sighed through pursed lips. He might as well be truthful and get over fast, like a band-aid. Minato put his hands on the table and folded them. He said, "Naruto would have been detrimental to the team. I couldn't risk the village losing its Jinchuriki if they needed to save their brother. Besides, he's usually doing things on his own." His matter-of-fact tone enraged the mother. Kushina nearly dropped her utensils in shock. She quickly stood up and, with a quiet fury, ready to explode. "So you're telling me," she began as she got up swiftly. "You didn't want Naruto on the team because he would be a burden," she ranted. Those were her children, and it didn't matter if one was behind the others. She would train all of them to the best of her abilities and fight for them till her last breath. Minato didn't want to leave it like this, but he had made his decision. Plus, he assigned Kakashi to Team 7 for a reason. In so many words, yes, Minato said emotionlessly. He was thinking like a Hokage, putting his soldiers in the best position to succeed and live. Kushina got up abruptly, leaving the bowl of ramen unfinished. "Where are you going?" asked Minato. He was confused as to why she left her favorite ramen unfinished. "Upstairs," Kushina answered harshly. She couldn't look at her husband right now. She started to head upstairs. "You didn't finish eating." Minato called out. "I lost my appetite," she called down while climbing the stairs. Upstairs in the house, the children all gathered in Menma's room. Naruto sat on his brother's bed with Akane in his lap. Menma sat on the ground while Narumi took the desk chair. "So, what's Kazan doing with you guys tomorrow?" Naruto asked his siblings. He was curious if there was any difference. Narumi answered her brother. Kazan told us to meet her in the training grounds in the backyard. She was in the process of cleaning her katana with some polish on a rag. Naruto groaned in annoyance before leaning back to lay on the bed, keeping Akane balanced on his lap. Lucky. I have to go meet Kakashini at training ground 7 early in the morning, Naruto whined out while he put his palms over his closed eyes. Menma caught what his brother said and asked, "You know to show up 2 hours late, right?" "Yes," Naruto answered in a groan again. Akane perked up at hearing her favorite silver-haired adult. "Kakani!" Akane exclaimed. Kakashi had won her over with letting her play with his ninken. She had been bored with the teens. All they did was talk about being ninjas. "I want to train with you and Kakani," Akane demanded. She shot Naruto a pair of puppy dog eyes and a cute quivering lip. Naruto rubbed her head and playfully tousled her hair. "When you're older," was Naruto's plain answer. Akane puffed out her cheeks, seeing she wasn't getting her way. She wanted to be just like the rest of her family and Jiraiya and Tsunade. She couldn't wait for later. Narumi swooned at her little sister's words. "Akane-kan." She then swooped the girl up in her arms and twirled her around the room like a rag doll. "You are just the cutest," she cooed. Akane didn't like being twirled and shouted, "Put me down, Nei-chan." She flailed her arms, but it did little to stop the deranged merry-go-round. The two males laughed at the spectacle in front of them. Naruto stopped soon but smiled still. His eyes moved to the corner to look at his brother. "Good luck tomorrow," Naruto offered to his brother. Menma stopped laughing to answer, "I don't need it." Menma shot Naruto a look of arrogance. He had been training for this moment his entire life. He didn't need his slothful brother telling him he needed luck. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his brother. Training Ground 7 Naruto had woken up early even though he knew Kakashi was more than likely to play his usual game. However, he was still excited to see what Kakashi had planned. Finding the training ground was easy since it was one of the first areas he mapped out. He found the area similar to the training ground he brought Konohamaru. The differences were a stream about 15 feet wide. 3 tree stumps forming a triangle at the one end of the training ground and a memorial stone. Naruto had packed some of his fishing gear with him to see what was biting in the steam. Maybe he would make a little breakfast for himself. He would have eaten something at home, but with the way his mother running around this morning, he thought better of it. So he set up a fire and started his fishing. Hours had passed, and a pile of fish bones had started to form. Naruto had his line back in the water as he felt a tug and pulled with all his might. "All right." Naruto cheered when up came a small trout that Naruto cleaned and put a stick in before placing by the fire. Naruto's quiet time eventually came to an end. Sakura had smelt smoke on the air and called out, "Anyone there?" The smoke smelt delicious, and it made her stomach rumble. "I wish I listened to Naruto," she moaned in hunger. She had skipped breakfast. She wanted to make a good impression with her new sensei by doing what he wanted. She had a bento box in her backpack, but she would only eat that when Kakashi told her. Naruto looked over his shoulder and saw the familiar pink hair. He gave her a wave as he called out, "Sakura." "Good morning." He then went back to fishing. Sakura set her pack down near the base of a nearby tree and sat next to Naruto by the bank. She got there to see him pull in another fish before he quickly prepared it and placed it by the fire. The smell of them cooking made her mouth water. Her gaze lingered on them like a predator. Naruto noticed the girl's stare. "Go ahead, take one," he offered Sakura. Sakura made an apprehensive grab for one before looking at Naruto. "Won't Kakashi-sensei be upset?" She didn't want to get kicked out for not following Kakashi's orders. A frown marred her face. Naruto saw the internal struggle going on in the girl. He pulled a cooked fish from the fire before offering it to her. "Trust me," Naruto insisted with a smile. His smile worked because her frown turned to a smile as she took the fish. Sakura had never eaten food that had just been caught. She gave a small test bite. It was nothing extraordinary, but it was still pleasing. "Thanks. This is good," she exclaimed before leaving only the stick and bones. She wiped some of the oil from her mouth and asked greedily, "Can I have another?" She was still hungry. Naruto laughed at her hungry expression. He caught another 2 for them each to have before putting his gear away. "Feel better?" Naruto asked Sakura. Sakura felt her nerves settle and the queasy feeling in her stomach died down after eating. She placed a hand on her stomach in contentment. "Yeah. I feel a lot better," she answered. Naruto nodded his head before he took on a serious face before giving advice to the girl. You should have eaten something before coming here." "I was just doing what he said," Sakura protested. "Food is what our bodies use to work. If we had an important mission today, you wouldn't be able to keep up," Naruto countered. He always treated his body like a temple and wanted Sakura to know the importance of taking care of hers. Sakura looked away from Naruto. His harsh words sank in, making her feel like an idiot. She should have known better. "Thank you for helping me," Sakura acknowledged Naruto's words. She wouldn't make that mistake ever again. She would stand on her own 2 feet right beside her team. Another set of footsteps entered the training grounds, and both teens saw their Uchiha teammate enter. He gave them a simple head nod before heading over to a tree on the opposite side of the training ground. He sat in the shade of a tree and left the duo to their own devices. He took time to observe them, or more specifically Naruto. With them being on a team, he would get to see his full capabilities. Finally, after about an hour, a familiar head of silver hair came walking down the path. When he was within their view, he gave them a wave and an eye smile before saying, "Yo. Good morning." He acted like nothing was wrong. "You're late," was the explosive response from his genin. He closed his one exposed eye before scratching the back of his head and explaining, "Well, I would have been here soon, but a black cat crossed my path, and I had to take the long way around." A breeze tore through the training grounds. "That's your worst excuse yet," Naruto told his older brother figure. He then crossed his arms and looked away. "And I'm telling Kazan when this is over," Naruto warned Kakashi, as he knew that his mother would get Kakashi to stop. All it would take is threatening his precious books. Kakashi then noticed that none of them looked haggard or hungry. "You 3 don't look hungry," he commented. Naruto's chipper voice called out, "I told them to ignore you." His snide and smart remark made Kakashi leer at him. Kakashi waved him off before he went over to the stone and placed his bag at the marble base of the memorial stone. Out of his pack, he took out an alarm clock and held it up. "Now we can begin the real test," he announced, and all the genin had different expressions. Sasuke was calm as ever, only deepening his glare. Sakura looked nervous as she kept looking between everyone. On the other hand, Naruto leaned forward and grew an exciting look. Sakura was the first to speak up. "What test?" she stammered out. It looked to Kakashi that he had to spell it out for the team. "This is the true genin test," he revealed. Sakura didn't understand. They had already taken an exam. "We're already genin," she contested. "That was just a test to see if you were even worth taking the true genin test," Kakashi revealed. He reached into his back satchel and pulled out a pair of bells tied with red string. "The real test is to get these bells from me, by any means possible within 2 hours, Kakashi revealed. He wound the clock, so it was set for 2 hours to go off. Naruto instantly felt his blood begin to warm, and he started to feel his skin tingle. He was excited. It was finally a chance to unleash on an opponent who could fight back. "I'm ready." Naruto jumped up in excitement. Sasuke narrowed his eyes more and got up from his spot. "This is getting interesting. My first real test," he thought. It was a step in the direction of bringing his brother home. Sakura pointed out something her other two teammates didn't notice. Kakashi-sensei. There are only 2 bells. She pointed at the bells as she spoke. Kakashi smiled at the comment. Very good, Sakura, you noticed. He then dangled the bells on his middle finger and held them to his genin. That means only 2 of you will be allowed to continue to be genin. The other will be sent back to the academy. Kakashi's ominous tone told them how serious he was. I quit. Naruto shouted out. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. He'd quit the exam, go home and start his journey. Sakura was wide-eyed by the proclamation while Sasuke nearly fell over. Why would he want to quit after all that time in the academy? Kakashi's sweat dropped. Minato-sensei said, if you do that, you are to report directly to him, and he would assign you to Ebisu. Kakashi delivered the warning from his sensei. Minato had seen this coming and had a contingency set up. Naruto instantly deflated, but the confident smirk returned at the thought of the fight. Kakashi then flicked the bells into his hand before tying them to his flat jacket. The test, all of them got in a ready stance. Begins. A bead of sweat rolled down Sasuke's temple, Sakura swallowed a lump in her throat, and Naruto's grin became face-splitting. Now. Kakashi finished, and his genin disappeared in bursts of speed. Sasuke and Sakura both did as expected. They were both in hiding and did so very decently. Sasuke was in one of the nearby trees, hiding amongst its branches. Sakura had chosen a spot on the ground hidden in the brush around the training ground. Then there was Naruto, who stood in the middle of the training ground with a toothy grin on his face. Kakashi stood in his relaxed posture, looking sideways at Naruto as he stood across the training ground. Kakashi knew the boy before he could walk, but Naruto was an anomaly. He read, well, more like skimmed, over his file. The only reading he ever did was anything that had Ika Ika in its title. The reports that the academy had provided them stated that Naruto was the dead last of his graduating class. However, there was one key piece of evidence that Kakashi found interesting: the only class based on bookwork he excelled in was cartography. However, in the physical aspects of the academy, Naruto excelled. Never losing a match in the 4 years as a student, never once hitting the ground. His tardiness and lack of enthusiasm were the only blemishes he had on the record. That bit of information piqued his curiosity. Though he was never exceptional in throwing kunai or shuriken, he was not wearing any pouches for them. Naruto gave his new sensei a battle-crazed smirk as he began popping the knuckles of his left hand in his right palm. Kakashi-ni. Drop the book, I want to fight you, he yelled from across the training ground as he got into a stance ready to charge. My blood is on fire, he shouted. Kakashi smirked at his sensei's oldest child. He kept skimming through his book, trying to rile up the team. That confidence would end up getting him killed. Maybe I need to knock the kid down a peg. The hairs on the back of Kakashi's neck rose as he jumped away from an axe kick that left an indent in the dirt where it landed. Kakashi didn't have time to inspect as Naruto followed up with an uppercut that nearly grazed his chin and caused Naruto to slightly rise in the air. Naruto snapped a front kick out, which would have caught Kakashi in the chin if he didn't put his unoccupied hand out to block. Kakashi leaped away, putting distance between the two. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at what happened. Then he noticed his hand tingled and shook it lightly. That actually stung. Kakashi's eyes closed and, in a happy tone, said, My Naruto, you are full of surprises. Kakashi was trying to lure Naruto in a false sense of security. Naruto didn't hear Kakashi as he charged in. Naruto brought another kick to Kakashi's face. Kakashi blocked again, but he was not ready for Naruto to bring his planted leg up for a second kick. Kakashi didn't want to, but he was not about to let a newly graduated academy student land a blow on him. He used his precious Ika Ika to block the second kick. The kick's strength knocked the book from his grip as it spun in the air for a moment. Naruto threw a punch at Kakashi's gut. Kakashi brought a hand down to redirect the punch away from him. Naruto grit his teeth as he can't land a mark on his elder brother. He then remembered something, the book that was coming down. Using his feet, he kicked the book on end, made it spin in place, and then kicked hard with his other foot aiming for Kakashi. The book impacted Kakashi's cheek, but he flowed with the attack to lessen the damage. Kakashi retaliated with a palm strike to Naruto's chest, sending him back a few feet. Kakashi took his eyes off his opponent to look at his book. It was now bent and buried in the dirt of the training ground. He looked back at Naruto with narrowed eyes. The teen had his arms up in a guard. Naruto had blocked the blow. Kakashi was impressed that the kid could react to the speed he lashed out with. However, Naruto was in need of punishment. Kakashi put his head down, making Naruto eye the man with curiosity. His ears then picked up Kakashi talking to him. "Naruto, Naruto, Naruto." Kakashi spoke in a hauntingly calm manner. Kakashi shook his head slowly side to side. Kakashi put his head up, revealing he gained a manic look on the exposed part of his face, his pupil shrank, and his voice became hauntingly vicious, "You just made the worst mistake of your life." Kakashi disappeared from sight. Naruto's head snapped down from a blow to the back of the head. Naruto's eyes lost their concentration for a second before a kick to his face brought him back to reality. Kakashi didn't relent, he grabbed Naruto by the back of his neck and then slammed him face first into the dirt. The boy lay still in the dirt from the quick, brutal assault. Kakashi looked at his work before he clapped the pretend dirt from his hand and let out a breath. "Phew. I feel better now." He stuck his hand in the back pouch. He pulled out another Ika book, but this was one different from the other one. The silver cover special edition, complete with author's signature and Jiraiya's personal note. Kakashi thought with glee as he giggled perversely as he began to read. Sakura was astonished by what she saw. Naruto had managed to land a blow on a seasoned jonin. Is this what he was really like all along, she questioned herself. Thinking back to it, she noticed he always looked bored in his spars, almost disappointed. Sasuke looked on wide-eyed. He's already this strong. Sasuke wondered, unable to believe Naruto could land a clean hit on a jonin. Naruto pulled his face from the dirt and stared up with a smile on his face. Kakashi's lone uncovered eye moved to look at the teen. He was slightly annoyed that he couldn't read more, but he learned the hard way not to take this kid lightly. "Now I'm all fired up." Naruto cheered as he stood up into a fighting stance. Kakashi kept a trained eye on the teen. He wasn't going to get hit or risk another book. "You sure are a glutton of punishment, Naruto," he said offhandedly while keeping his book out. A bloodthirsty grin spread across Naruto's face, and it caused Kakashi to pause in his taunting. Naruto grinned as he channeled his magic into his chest and, in a vicious voice, said, "I hope you're ready, Kakashini-ai. Because I've been saving this ace in a hole just for you." Naruto bashed his knuckles together, and Kakashi swore he heard a roar. What happened next would forever be ingrained in Kakashi's mind. He felt the air temperature suddenly rise and Naruto's chest swell. The words that left Naruto's mouth would consume his Suntobe-sensei and teammates. "Karyu no Hoko." Naruto screamed the spell's name in his head as he cupped his lips. Kakashi was wide-eyed as he watched a fireball bigger than he had ever seen come steaming towards him. Sasuke and Sakura had to cover their eyes from the blinding heat. Kakashi barely made it in time to enact a kawarimi. The poor log was turned to ash in an instant. Naruto let the spell last a little longer than necessary before cutting the flow of magic. The grass was charred, and small streams of smoke fluttered up from the ground. Sasuke stopped covering his face and looked in disbelief at the carnage below. What Naruto did was bigger and more deadly than any fire jutsu he had ever produced. "I can't believe it," he breathed out. He felt like he was a young kid watching his brother train in the woods all over again. Naruto stood in a victory pose and flashed a V for Victor sign. He let out a laugh before proclaiming, "I win." His ears caught the sound of movement underground, and he quickly jumped away from two hands protruding from the dirt. Naruto landed away and leered at the arms as they pulled themselves out of the dirt. Kakashi rose from the dirt, his jacket still smoking from the fire attack. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect a sealless fire jutsu from Naruto. "That was a surprise, Naruto," Kakashi coughed out. His skin ached, but luckily only his clothing smoked. He had only seen what he saw when he was in Umbu. Something was going on, and he needed to get to the bottom of this. Naruto was ecstatic. His fun wasn't over yet, and he got to fight more. "Alright, here I come." Naruto charged at Jonin, and the Kakashi got ready for more of the onslaught. Naruto and Kakashi quickly exchanged blows. Kakashi received a kick to the lower leg and a fist to his jaw. Naruto got an elbow to the top of the head before he was struck in his solar plex. Kakashi was beyond impressed with the boy. He was able to keep up with him at low Chunin levels. However, Kakashi had other students to test. "See ya," Kakashi said chipperly before using a kawarimi, leaving Naruto to blast a fist through a log. When Sasuke saw the man disappear, he left his hiding spot. Naruto impacted the dirt, making a small dust cloud shoot up. Naruto looked around and found no Kakashi. "Damn it," he screamed out into the nearby forest. Sakura was like a terrified rabbit stuck between two warring wolves. She was managed to crawl out from under the foliage. She sprinted through the woods, trying her best to maybe find a teammate or get the drop on Kakashi. When she came across Kakashi standing in a clearing reading those perverted books, the decision was made for her. She remained hidden and began thinking, "He doesn't know I'm here. If I take him by surprise, I might get a chance." She then dug into her kunai holder and the pack on her back. Kakashi's lone visible eye wandered over to where Sakura's hiding spot. "Still hiding, huh, smart. Maybe I should go flush her out." Kakashi was ready to put his plan into action when a kunai came flying towards his face from the bushes. He lazily leaned out of the way before two shuriken came at him, which he effortlessly snatched out of the air. He noticed a thin wire attached to them, making him raise an eyebrow. Suddenly smoke bombs rolled around his feet. The bombs blew and covered the area in smoke. Sakura pulled on the wire in her hands and found where Kakashi was in the smoke and threw a kunai. She added a little extra to the kunai in the form of an explosive tag. She then let go of the wire and covered her face as the explosion went off. The explosion rocked the area and dissipated the smoke. When Sakura put her arms down, she looked at Kakashi's area and found nothing but an impacted crater. Behind Sakura, a Kakashi's voice startled her, "Not bad, but still not enough." She quickly turned around, and Kakashi used the snake seal before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. She quickly shrugged it off before she found herself alone. She pulled out a kunai and got in a guard stance while scanning the area for her sensei. She started to sweat as she couldn't find him, and her heart hammered in her chest. "Where is he?" she breathed out. "Sakura," Naruto's voice called out behind her. It was heavy and ragged. Sakura was happy to hear a familiar voice and whirled around to look at her friend. "Naruto, thank Kami, we need," she started to say before the words died in her throat. It was Naruto alright, but he was bleeding all over from cuts on his body. Kunai and shuriken were sticking out of his back, arms, legs, and one was sticking out of his right eye. She let out a bone-chilling scream. Kakashi pulled out his jacket collar at the girl's reaction. Tears ran like a river down from her eyes, and whimpers escaped from her throat. Maybe he overdid it a bit. He then walked over to the girl and chopped her in the neck to make her pass out. He then left to go test Sasuke. Kakashi found Sasuke in another clearing hiding behind a tree. Kakashi took the same approach as Sakura. He got a book out and pretended not to notice him. That was when Sasuke came out from behind the tree. "Oh. Coming out to greet me?" Kakashi taunted. Sasuke stared neutrally at the Jonin. "You knew where I was. There's no point in hiding anymore." He pulled out 2 kunai and tossed them at Kakashi. The man put his book away as he jumped out of the way. Sasuke then threw a kunai at the tree behind him and sliced through a rope. The rope released a log trapped in the tree by 2 vines and swung down towards Kakashi. Kakashi jumped and landed on the log trap before cutting the ropes and letting it crash to the ground below. He calmly walked off the log. With a shrug of his shoulders and mockingly wiping fake dirt off his jacket, he taunted, Naruto was better." It was the truth. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the remark but remained quiet. He then flashed through hand seals before ending in the tiger seal. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. He then shot a fireball out of his mouth. Kakashi watched it come right at him and sighed internally, "Another one." He then braced himself. As the fire washed over him. After a few seconds, Sasuke stopped the chakra flow and watched as the fire died down. When the fire cleared, he noticed there was no body. He quickly looked left, then right, behind, and finally above. There was nothing in all those directions. That can only mean, Sasuke internally panicked as he went to jump but was caught by his ankles. Kakashi was tired of all the fire, and he was going to take his anger out on Sasuke. Doton, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. He then buried Sasuke up to his head in the dirt. Sasuke cried out in pain and surprise as he was buried, looking up at the taunting stare of his Jonin. "You know, you genin surprised me," Kakashi started before he began walking away. "But not that surprising," he finished. Sasuke then smirked at Kakashi's retreating back before calling out, "I have one last trick." He then disappeared in a cloud of smoke, and a log took his place. Kakashi turned swiftly with a wide eye for the second time today. The cutting of air met his ears. He quickly weaved through several kunai and shuriken before meeting Sasuke's foot coming towards his head. Kakashi blocked it with his forearm. He stared right into Sasuke's now red eyes. It was the famous Uchiha Dojutsu, the Sharingan staring right back at him. It was known for the power to copy any jutsu that it sees. Sasuke's Sharingan wasn't fully developed, only having 2 tomos around each pupil. Kakashi wasn't surprised by the revelation. He was the son of Mikoto and Fugaku, after all. He was surprised it took him this long before he pulled out that ace in the hole. So you went all out, huh?" Kakashi asked before flicking the kick away and repelling the Uchiha with a heel kick to the chest. Kakashi performed a set of hand seals before spitting out a fireball of his own. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Sasuke dug his feet into the ground before his eyes alerted him to the incoming jutsu. The fireball was bigger than the one he produced. However, Sasuke had copied something from Kakashi. He enacted the jutsu as the fireball blasted at him. Kakashi cut the flow of chakra to the fireball when he noticed Sasuke didn't get out of the way. He saw nothing in the spot where Sasuke stood. His instincts flared as he stabbed a chakra fist into the ground. He felt something and instantly clasped onto it. He gave a strong pull and yanked out Sasuke out of the ground by his throat. Kakashi looked at Sasuke with a critical eye before saying, "Nice try, using my own jutsu against me." He then hurled the Uchiha to the other side of the clearing. Sasuke righted himself in the air and landing in a skid. He then flashed through hand seals and performed another jutsu. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. 4 separate fireballs threw at Kakashi. Kakashi flashed through hand seals of his own and placed his hands on the ground. Doton, Dorihiki. A wall of rock came up in front of Kakashi. The side facing Sasuke was decorated with dog heads. Fire and earth clashed as the fireballs exploded on impact, blowing up chunks of the wall. Sasuke rushed around the wall and found nothing. He quickly scanned the area until he felt a strong arm wrap around his throat. He tried to dig his fingers into the forearm to no avail. Sasuke grit his teeth as he begins to foam at the mouth. His lungs burned, and his brain throbbed from the lack of oxygen. Darkness crept into the corner of his vision, and finally, it took over. Kakashi hefted the teen onto his shoulder. He was lucky that Sasuke was inexperienced in using the Sharingan in actual combat. Kakashi used the wall to break the line of sight and then took advantage of it. When Sasuke stopped struggling, he unceremoniously let him drop the teen to the ground. So far, his genin had shown they are talented, but that didn't make a shinobi team. They still lacked one key thing that would help them pass the test. Kakashi left the clearing and headed back to the main part of the training ground. Meanwhile, Naruto was following Kakashi's scent through the forest. For only being gone a handful of moments, he was able to trace him to a clearing where a battle took place. In the middle of it all was Sakura, out cold. He ran to her and skid to a stop. He cradled the upper of the girl and slapped her cheek gently. "Hey hi," he said between gentle slaps. "Sakura, come on, wake up," he rambled. Sakura's eye fluttered open, and she looked up at Naruto. She latched onto him with a hug and yelled, "Naruto! You're alive!" She was happy to see him at least. Naruto pulled her off him and asked, "Where's Kakashi?" The events that led up to this moment flowed into Sakura's mind. She shivered as a result. "I don't know," she replied before recounting how she got into her predicament. She left out the part about watching Naruto die. Naruto rubbed his chin while he hummed in thought. Sakura sat on the ground with her knees tucked up to her chest while looking at the sky. Naruto then snapped his fingers before shouting, "I got it." "Got what?" Sakura questioned. "We go to work together. That's the point of the test," Naruto revealed. He had remembered something his dad had told him. "My dad told me the most important part about being on a shinobi team is teamwork," Naruto revealed. Sakura dug her finger into her cheek as she thought. It made sense, but there was one underlining problem. "What about the two bells?" she pointed out. "If all three of them worked together, still one of them had to fail." Naruto then waved her off before telling her, "You two take them. I didn't want to be a shinobi anyways." He started to walk in a direction and waved to Sakura to follow. "Let's go. I got Kakashi's scent." Sakura got up, not wanting to know how he smelt Kakashi. Back in the main area of the training ground, Kakashi was leaning against one of the posts, reading again. Sasuke was tied up to one of the posts, still unconscious. Kakashi turned and looked at the alarm clock he had set. 30 more minutes, he thought to himself. So far, they all had impressed him. Naruto was a frontline fighter through and through. That jutsu he did was impressive. It was nothing like he had ever seen. Sakura had impressed him with her coming up with a plan on the fly. He put his book away when he sensed Naruto coming out right for him. Out of the woods to his right, Naruto merrily walked out with a canine showing grin. "You ready for round 2? Kakashi wanted to test Naruto's capabilities to the fullest but didn't reveal his Sharingan to the teen. He got in a ready stance of his own and fired back, trying to keep up Naruto. The two then disappeared in bursts of speed. They clashed like two titans. Naruto shot a kick at Kakashi's head. Naruto blocked a punch aimed for his chin. Naruto snapped a punch at Kakashi's kick to block. Kakashi swiped Naruto's legs out from underneath him, but Naruto snapped a kick upward and caught Kakashi's chin. Kakashi had kept track of the time in his head as he fought, and he was in luck. Only 10 more minutes, he counted in his head. He could hold off Naruto and send them back to the academy. All he had to do was wait it out. Looks like it's Sakura. Now. With the signal given, a hail of kunai came raining down from a nearby tree. Kakashi disengaged from Naruto and jumped away. Sakura didn't relent as she kept throwing and throwing, no matter how much her arms screamed in protest. She would pester Kakashi so his focus would be divided. Kakashi weaved through the flying knives. It was annoying that she had so many. It suddenly stopped, and Kakashi had to brace against a kick to his head. If Kakashi's bell wasn't rung, he would have smiled happily. They were working together, and they got him away from their captured teammate. It was like him and Obito all those years ago. Sakura's assault stopped, and Kakashi guessed she was out of ammo. She then appeared next to Naruto, ready to stand her ground. Kakashi was proud of those two. They looked underneath the underneath. It was time for one final test. In a burst of speed they couldn't track, he disappeared from view. The two teens looked around quickly, but Kakashi spoke out, giving up his position, "Behind you." The two quickly snapped behind him and were horrified by what they saw. Kakashi had Sasuke's hair wrapped up in one hand and a kunai in the other hand, resting against Sasuke's Adam's apple. Naruto moved to stop him, but Kakashi pressed it to make a point. "Not another step," Kakashi growled. The two stopped in their tracks. Naruto asked uneasily, "Kakashinyai, what are you doing?" This wasn't like the brother he knew. It went against everything he stood for. Kakashi gave the teen boy a furious look and demanded, "Naruto, kill Sakura if you want Sasuke to live." This was one final test. The test of self-sacrifice. Like the one he failed to do. Naruto's face became serious before speaking, "This isn't funny, Kakashinyai. Stop." His cold, emotionless words met the ears of the two conscious people. It felt off. Sakura glanced at Naruto. She wasn't worried that he would kill her, but she was worried about Kakashi didn't relent in the role. "I'm going to count to 5. And I'm going to count to 3, Naruto fired back. His pupils turned to slits, and the air started to warm. Sakura was taken aback by her teammate's sudden. Kakashi raised an eyebrow from this side of the younger teen. This was a kid who lived a carefree life and always had a smile on his face. Now, he's staring down at a predator. 1. Kakashi started and leaned his blade in closer. 1. Naruto mimicked as he opened his hand. He unknowing was leaking killing intent. Next to him, Sakura looked on in worry as a chill danced on her skin. Even though the intent was not directed at her, she still felt the intent that Naruto radiated. 2. Kakashi said as he narrowed his eyes in worry. The aura he felt Naruto emitting was not natural. He hadn't fought anyone or anything that had a presence like this in a long time. A giant fireball roared to life from Naruto's palm. The flames screamed like a beast and started to burn the dirt, and the grass beside him as the flames absorbed it. Tool! Naruto roared, about ready to kill Kakashi to save his teammate. Sakura took a step away, not wanting to get in the way of whatever Naruto was planning. For the first time in a long time, Kakashi started to experience fear. His throat became dry as feeling the heat radiate from Naruto's attack. He would more than likely counter it if he was just him facing it, but he had Sasuke to cover. 3, he said with a bit of apprehension on the back of his voice. He wasn't so sure if Naruto was bluffing. The fire danced and fluttered as it grew larger. Naruto reeled the flaming fist back and shouted out, 3. He poured all the last bit of magic he had into this spell. He would do it if he needed to kill Kakashi to save Sasuke. Before Naruto could launch his attack, Kakashi dropped the kunai, smiled, and announced, "You 3 pass." He knew he was dealing with a true team. He then tapped Sasuke in the head, releasing the genjutsu he placed on him. Sakura immediately collapsed to the ground, her legs sliding out to the sides as she sat. She released a breath she had been holding during the standoff. "Thank, Kami," she breathed. All her muscles went slack as the adrenaline left her body. The fire dissipated from Naruto's hand, and the temperature died out. Naruto's shoulders went slack as he felt the effects of putting all his remaining power into that move. Phew. I'm beat, he stated before he fell to the ground beside Sakura with a smile on his face. Sasuke fluttered his eyes open and groggily asked, "What happened?" He then went to move but found himself restrained. "What the hell?" he questioned as he tried to force the rope off. Sakura got up as she called out, "I'll get you out of there." She grabbed one of her thrown kunai and cut her teammate free as she explained what happened. The duo sat down next to Naruto as they all panted and tried to gain their breath. Kakashi stood in front of them with his hands on his hips and proclaimed, "We are now officially a team. You three had to overcome the odds and use teamwork to defeat me. However, I saw an opportunity to change the test." He then looked at Naruto, who smiled brightly, and Sakura, who blushed at the praise. "You showed me you were willing to kill to save a teammate, even against the odds." All of them smirked and cheered at the news. However, their mood was dampened when Kakashi spoke next. "However, the life of a shinobi isn't all fun and games. That memorial stone behind you three is proof of that." Kakashi pointed, and the three followed the finger. "The names of my best friends, teammates, and father are on that stone." "Obito and Rin," Naruto commented. He remembered his father telling him, his brother, and his sister about them. How they lost their lives in the war and on a mission. Kakashi nodded his head sadly and told them, "I will try my very best that none of your names end up on this stone." Sakura spoke up and said something that took them all by surprise, "And we'll make sure your name doesn't go up there either." Naruto smirked, and Sasuke looked away but nodded, accepting the promise. Kakashi's heart warmed at the statement. It was happening more and more often, especially with the apprentice of Tsunade. Maybe taking this job wasn't so bad after all. "Tomorrow, meet me at Hokage Tower for our first team mission," Kakashi said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. He had to take a certain someone up on their offer for a date. The three stood in place before looking at one another for what to do next. Sasuke spoke first, "I'll see you tomorrow." He then walked in the direction of the Uchiha compound and put his hand up in a slight wave. Sakura inhaled deeply and exhaled longer than usual. She was tired, but it was an accomplished tired. However, did she really have anything to feel accomplished about? "Well, see you tomorrow," Naruto said to her. She sighed heavily and began to walk home, her head hanging low. "What's the matter?" Naruto's voice made her whip around to see the concern on his face. Sakura was a mixture of embarrassed and delighted. She could talk to someone about her problem. "It's just," she exhaled before continuing. "What good am I to this team?" she finished. Naruto was perplexed. She had helped plenty. He couldn't have done what he did without her. "Come on, you helped," Naruto assured her. Sakura scuffed and retorted, "Yeah, by throwing kunai and shuriken. You and Sasuke actually fought Kakashi-sensei. What if I get in close-quarter combat? I'd be dead before I knew it." She was not mincing her words. Kakashi had made it clear that this life was dangerous, and being unprepared could be the difference between life and death. Naruto nodded his head in understanding. He closed his eyes and put his hand on his chin while he thought. Then he had an idea, but it would take some begging and pleading. He quickly snatched Sakura by the hand and took off. "Come on," Naruto encouraged. Oblivious that the girl was, "Where are we going?" Sakura asked. Not that she minded holding Naruto's hand. She just wished he'd slow down. Naruto flashed her the warmest smile she had ever seen before, saying, "To get you stronger." Sakura's heart fluttered. It was beyond sweet that Naruto wanted to help her and wasn't even asking for anything in return. She smiled joyously as she pumped her legs as fast as possible to keep up. Uzumaki Namikaze's household kushina is on the far end of the family training ground. She bore down a stern expression on her two children. You need to manifest a controlled amount of the Kyuubi's chakra. This was their test. They needed to manifest the chakra of the Kyuubi and control it. If they couldn't do that, they weren't ready for what was to come. You control the chakra. The chakra doesn't control you. Kushina called out as she unleashed her chains. She had beat their asses all morning. Her two children were panting, but the tearing of the ground made them snap their heads up before leaping away in separate directions. She deflected a sword strike from Narumi with a swipe of her own sword. The action caused Narumi to go flying away. Narumi landed with a grunt as she summoned her own Kongo Fusa and launched them at her mother. Her mother's chains easily tore through her own and went right for her. She panicked and dove out of the way. She didn't get a second to breathe as Kushina flashed through head seals before launching an attack. Suetun, Daibakufu no Jutsu. Kushina unleashed a massive torrent of water on her daughter. Narumi watched the jutsu come right at her. Her fear consumed made her unable to move. Suddenly she was in a room that looked like Akane's. A playpen with toys in a brightly lit room. In the middle of the playpen, a small little fox was trying to balance a ball. This fox was no bigger than a house cat and had 9 fluffy tails. It took notice of her and gave her the biggest smile it could. "Hi," it called out in a high-pitched voice. It hopped off the ball and trotted over to the opposite side of the gate where Narumi stood. Narumi looked at the cute little thing and asked, "What are you?" "I'm Kyuubi," it said proudly. It sat back on its hind legs and puffed its chest out. It was more adorable than tough. Narumi looked on in wonder as the fox with its tails wagged in excitement. "You're the Kyuubi?" she asked, not believing it for a single second. She couldn't believe that this fluffy and adorable thing was a beast that nearly destroyed the village. Kyuubi nodded enthusiastically at the question and assured her, "Yes, and I am so happy to meet you. I've been so lonely." For years it watched the girl grow and loved her peachy go-getter attitude. She was just like him. Narumi felt sorry for the fox and wanted to put her hand out to pet it. She controlled the urge and stood tall and confident. "I need to use your chakra," Narumi told the fox. Kyuubi looked at her with a slight tilt of its head before rubbing one of its ears with one of its front paws. It took all of Narumi's restraint to not pick it up and squeeze the stuffing out of it. It then spoke up, "Okay. But on one condition." It held one of its cute little paws up as if holding up a finger. Narumi blushed but was able to keep her voice steady. "What do you want?" She was ready for any tricks or one-sided promises. Kyuubi stood on his hind legs and cutely asked, "You have to come by and play with me." He was lonely in here. A playmate would be nice to have once in a while. She could throw the ball, and he could go get it. Narumi jumped at the promise, "Yes." The Kyuubi looked at her with surprise before dancing around happily. She then reached over the playpen and offered a hand to the fox. "Deal," she said. Kyuubi placed one of its paws on her hand and replied with a squeak, "Deal." With the deal struck, she felt Kyuubi began to give her chakra. Narumi opened her eyes, her irises were crimson, and her pupil was now a long slit. Her nails became long like claws, and her canines became like fangs. At the end of her ponytail, the hair danced and swayed like a tail. She let out a roar, and the water jutsu let up in a cloud of steam. Then as quickly as she received it, it was gone. Her body felt the aftereffects of using it and collapsed. Kushina stopped all fighting and began clapping her hands while jumping up and down. "Awesome job, Rumikin. You did it." Kushina called out proudly. Narumi gave a shaky thumbs up before plopping it to the ground. Then she turned to Menma, who was panting while still trying to concentrate. "Now it's your turn, Menma-kun," she declared before she flourished her precious Shinku no Shio. Then she charged at him, her sword swinging. Menma pulled out a kunai and went into a guarded stance with the blade. He deflected 2 side slashes before Kushina shot a kick at his chin which made him fly across the ground. He used his hand and righted himself. Before he knew it, his mother was bearing down on him with her sword, about to slash down on him. Menma shut his eyes and awaited the pain. Menma found himself in ankle-deep water in a poorly lit cave. He looked closer at the wall. He noticed pipes going deeper. That's when he realized where he was, not a cave, a sewer. He corrected himself. He followed the pipes, his feet splashing with every step. He eventually came to a gate with huge, thick iron bars. Behind the bars was complete darkness. He squinted into the darkness. Suddenly a giant red eye with a slit iris opened up in front of him. Menma yelled in fear as he fell onto his butt in the water. "Well, it seems my jailer has come for a visit," a deep raspy voice commented. Menma stood up from the water and looked at the beast in wide-eyed horror. "The Kyubi," he whimpered in fear. It was massive. Standing on its hind legs, and it could probably topple Hokage Mountain. The stories he heard hadn't done the monster justice. If anything, they were watered down. The Kyubi's eyes gleamed maliciously as it inspected the boy he was trapped in. He was not impressed. In fact, he was furious. The damn boy looked just like the Yondaime. He hated the man for sealing him again. Kyubi was disappointed he couldn't kill the blonde the night he was released. However, seeing some fear in the man's offspring brought a smile to its maw. "Yes, bow before the greatest of the tailed beasts." "Filthy little ninjen," the Kyubi roared out. Its roar shook the sewer and made the water ripple. Menma guarded his face with his arms as he braced against the force. When it subsided, Menma looked up in time to see the Kyubi bring its massive claws down on the iron bars. Menma leaped back but was relieved to see the gate held. Menma got up and stared in awe at the beast. The Kyubi continued to smirk at the teen mockingly. Menma clenched his fist in anger. "How dare it look down on him," Menma glowered. "Shut your damn mouth, fox!" Menma shouted at the monster. The Kyubi's expression was wiped from its face as he stared down at the boy with anger. Menma then smirked arrogantly at the fox and proclaimed, "The way I see it, you're living in me, and I'm calling for rent." He then got right next to the bars and shouted at it, "I'll be taking your chakra as payment." The pipes leading to the Kyubi's prison cell began to glow a crimson red. The Kyubi felt a pull on its chakra, and it became enraged. He roared and gleamed a large eye down at the boy. The pupil dilated, and it hissed, "You dare steal from me? You little worm." This human was no different than all the rest. Always using him as a source of power and taking it. When he got out, all those who used him would pay. "Know this ninjen, I will get out of here one day. I'll be sure to come for you and your family first when I do. Especially the odd-smelling one." Kyubi threatened before receding into the chamber's darkness. Menma didn't know what the beast was talking about, but that didn't matter. He needed to use the Kyubi's chakra to save himself. Back in the outside world, Menma went under the same transformation as his sister, except his hair became spiky. He then effortlessly clasped the sword between his palms, and then with more force than was necessary, he threw his mother away. However, even though Kushina was out of the shinobi forces for years, she was able to land on her feet. Menma growled at her but quickly came to his senses. He took a calming breath as he felt the power of the Kyubi's chakra bleed out of him. This power, Menma looked at his hand in awe. He felt like he could do anything with that power in him. Before he could contemplate further, he wrapped in a big hug. "You passed," Kushina said and hugged her children. They hugged her back. Hospital Tsunade sat in her office, waiting for her day to end. She was thirsty for her sweet sake. She opened up the drawer to peek at it. "There you are, my precious," she sang out. She then got a glimpse at another item she had been working on. It was the file on Naruto on the night he was abducted. The events of that night still bothered her. The clothing, the signs of stomach acid on the clothing, the burn marks, and the lack of a scar were complex puzzles she was trying to complete. She opened it and looked through it for what was the 100th time. She sighed before putting in her bottom drawer and closing it. Her door burst open, and the familiar voice of Naruto entered. "Hey! Obasan! I got something for you," he yelled into her office as he kicked the door. Tsunade instinctively stood as she reached for her staple to chuck at the teen. He had a habit of just barging in, and it was plain rude of him. However, he was accompanied by a pink-haired teen girl. She lowered the stapler and asked, "Who's this?" The teen was usually by himself or with his siblings, so it was odd for him to be with anyone. Naruto put his hand on Sakura's shoulder and firmly stated, "Your new apprentice." The confidence in his tone made it sound like Tsunade had already agreed to the idea. She turned beet red from embarrassment as she found the floor the most interesting thing in the world. Sakura looked beyond shocked. When he grabbed her hand and made her follow him, she didn't expect to meet one of the legendary Sannin. Now he was telling the great Tsunade she was her new apprentice. Tsunade's eyes fell on the teenage girl with a raised eyebrow. The girl looked too meek and helpless to be of any use. Tsunade smirked happily. She was like a block of clay that needed to be sculpted. "What's your name, Gaki?" she asked the girl. "Haruno Sakura, Tsunadesima." Tsunade smirked at the girl's answer and determined expression. Hokage's office Kakashi had made it back to the tower just as the first 6 team leaders went over their reports. As he opened the door in his shambled state, he was on the receiving end of whispers and stares. Most of them parted ways so he could get to the Hokage's desk. Jonin Kakashi Hatake reporting that Team 7 has passed, Kakashi stated. Many hushed voices discussed. Kushina burst through the crowd, and the sheer joy plastered on her face showed how proud she was. "My babies passed," she exclaimed. She was a proud mother and had no doubt they wouldn't pass. Minato laughed awkwardly at his wife's outburst before settling her down. "Yes, that's great, Kushina-chan, but I need to hear everyone else's report." Kushina had the decency to be bashful as she rubbed the back of her head. Kurenai steps forward and announces, "Team 8 has passed." She then stepped back. Asuma stepped forward, "Team 10 passed my test." He then found a spot next to Kurenai. She did eyeball the cigarette in his mouth, and he smirked at her before winking. Kushina skipped forward and proclaimed, "My team passed the test." She held up 2 fingers in a sign for victory. Minato nodded his head before taking the teams that failed files, putting them in a pile, and labeling them to be sent back to the academy. He looked up at the men and women in his office before saying, "Thank you all for your hard work. For those whose teams failed, please report back to your regular posts. The rest of you, please meet up with your teams tomorrow." He received a chorus of "Hi Hokagesima, s" and a "Yes, Minatokoi" from his wife. Everyone eventually left the room, leaving only him and Kakashi. The silver-haired man sat and waited for all ears to leave before speaking up. "Sensei, I need to speak to you." "Naruto," Minato answered. He received a nod from his student. "How well did he do with the bell test?" Minato asked, wanting a full report from his student. "Good." Kakashi answered plainly, before getting serious. "Really good, in fact." "What do you mean?" Minato pressed. "Someone's been training him." "There's no way someone gets that good just lazing around," Kakashi said before he recounted what happened at the training ground. Kakashi watched his sensei's face become an array of emotions. Embarrassment morphed into pride, and pride turned into worry. "Those reports you've been getting on him from the Umbu are false, Sensei," Kakashi urged. He had been in Umbu for years. He knew the ins and outs of the group. They didn't make mistakes unless it was done on purpose. Minato nodded his head as he listened to his student's words. "I feared that, but I didn't want to believe it," Minato admitted. He thought he could trust those people. I've been thinking that for a handful of days now. How so? Kakashi inquired. My son hates ramen, Minato answered as he dug into the desk drawer and pulled the scrolls out of his desk. He quickly looked them over and found that they were practically written the same. Get me, Ryu, now. Minato demanded. His blood boiled as he had been made a fool. Sensei? Kakashi asked. He had watched Minato look over his reports and watched the man's face scrunch with worry before turning to rage. He would keep this from his wife for now until he had more answers. I want to get to the bottom of this, now. Minato yelled, and Kakashi went to retrieve the leader of the Umbu. He knew better than to question his sensei when it came to matters such as these. Root headquarters Danzo was in his office contemplating his agent's news in the Hokage's Umbu. It seemed Usagi had failed to maintain the deception. He would have to move up his plan's timetables and maybe kill Usagi. He would need to cover his trail after he abducted the Uzumaki Namikes. Then he would come back to use the team as leverage against the Hokage. A puppet that could help him get another puppet. He may not rule, but he would control everything from the shadows. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. This is Raven Sage signing off.